Hey all. This is Six Path Weeb, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into part 2 of our epic fanfic series, What If Naruko Were the Jinchūriki of All Creation? Get ready for some intense power scaling, emotional twists, and wild what-ifs as we continue exploring this alternate Naruto universe. Disclaimer, this content is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's jump in, guys, it's about to get legendary. Raikage Tower. Oh come on, big bro. Why can't I go help out in the operation, yo? Kirabai whined, while E's brow twitched with restrained irritation. For the last time, B, you were already assigned a mission when I selected the shinobi who would support Mei-san's side during the bloodline conflict. Yugito is already going with them. 2 Jinchūriki are more than enough to handle the current situation, especially since the other Jinchūriki is no longer aligned with Kirigakure, he explained in a calm but firm tone. But what about my students, Samui, Karu, and Amoe? Kirabai pressed. They'll be just fine, he responded with growing frustration. You are needed here to secure the borders of our country. That's final. At that moment, Naruko appeared at the entrance of the tower, visibly hesitant after sensing the tension in the room. Should I come back later? The blonde asked with a sweat drop. No, Naruko, you're fine. Stay, he said, calming down slightly. Is the group ready to depart for the land of water? Naruko nodded. Yes, we're all set. Good. Just to reiterate, you'll be posing as mercenaries hired by Mei to assist her faction. The last thing we want is an international incident over interfering with the affairs of a neutral nation. Have you made plans for dealing with their forces? Thanks to the information she obtained from her unique experiences in another timeline, Naruko had detailed knowledge of Kirigakure's strongholds, guard rotations, supply points, and vulnerable locations. What about the daimyos? She asked. They're aware of the situation and are already making plans to support the rebellion's success. Be cautious out there, Naruko. The ninja in that region are known for their stealth. Naruko nodded again. And so am I, she thought silently. Our best course of action is to depart early tomorrow. The patrols on the water are more active at night, she explained. E nodded in agreement while Kirabai sulked in the corner. What about the situation with Konoha? Naruko asked. E sighed. Unfortunately, Danzo is beyond our reach for now. He has too much political influence within the Konoha leadership. Despite our best efforts to gather information from former root agents, none have cooperated, even without the binding seals. One of them, regrettably, did not survive the interrogation. Naruko's eyes briefly gleamed red, her fists clenched in restrained frustration. You mean that manipulator is just going to walk away after sending his agents after my loved ones? She asked, her voice low but composed. I've already sent a formal notice to the Hokage, no Konoha shinobi are allowed within Kumo territory until further notice. Our patrol units have been doubled, he replied. And how does that help hold Danzo accountable? Naruko asked. To put it simply, if Konoha pushes back, it could spark a conflict they're not prepared for. They're still recovering from past events, and we have 3 Jinchūriki. They have none. If it comes to a confrontation, Konoha would be at a severe disadvantage. That may be, but Danzo is strategic and manipulative. He's not to be underestimated, Naruko warned. I'll take your word for it. Just be careful. And please make sure those 4, Yugito, Karu, Amoe, and Samui, return safely. Kirabai would be devastated if anything happened to them. I will. And I'll do my best to make sure Karu-chan doesn't strangle Amoe during the mission, Naruko said with a small laugh. E chuckled. Yes, please do. With a playful salute, Naruko vanished in a swirl of wind. Kumo shipping ports, midnight. Near one of Kumo's cargo docks, a large ship was being prepared for departure. Present were Kushina, Naruko, Shinku, Kakashi, Rin, Mei, Anko, and Yu Gao, joined by the Kumo ninja supporting them, Yugito, Karu, Samui, Amoe, and an elite squad of Onbu hand-picked by E. Naruko was checking her equipment as were the others. Amoe stood nearby, lost in thought while enjoying a lollipop, imagining all the possible outcomes if the mission went wrong. Naruko noticed his faraway expression and walked over with a smile. Worrying about worst-case scenarios isn't always helpful, Amoe, she said gently, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I know, he replied, but this is my first time entering unfamiliar territory like this. Anything could happen. Kaoru sighed and lightly tapped him on the head. Amoe, lighten up. You always overthink things. This is our chance to help people and make a difference. Amoe merely shrugged. Whatever you say. Kaoru rolled her eyes and raised her hand to nudge him again when Naruko quickly stepped in and caught her wrist. Save the teasing for after the mission, Kaoru-chan, she said with a light-hearted grin. Kaoru blushed slightly, pulling her hand back and folding her arms. Fine, she muttered. Hey, Naruko-chan, Hitomi called out. Yeah? How are you planning to deal with the Mizukage and the Sanbi? I know you and Yugito are strong, but do you have a way to resolve things peacefully? Naruko nodded thoughtfully. Actually, yes. From what I've learned, Yagura has been under the influence of a powerful illusion technique, likely cast by someone using a special dojutsu. He was never acting of his own will. I plan to break that control. That makes sense, Hitomi replied. With all the knowledge you've gained from the other timeline, you're more prepared than anyone here. I hope so. But this version of Madara might be different. He could have new goals. Right now, I can't worry about him or the Akatsuki. My focus is on this mission. And dealing with Orochimaru and Danzo, Naruko said firmly. A hand on her shoulder caught her attention. Kakashi stood there, his expression calm but concerned. Feeling nervous? He asked. This is your first time in a war zone. Things will be different than any mission you've faced before. A little, Aniki, she admitted. But I'll manage. Kakashi nodded and walked off to check his gear, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Naruko's expression. That wasn't fear. She looked like someone who's faced impossible challenges before. Not long after, everyone boarded the ship, which quietly departed into the misty waters, destination, Kirigakure. Inside the cargo hold. Naruko was seated on a crate, carefully honing her ninjato with a smooth sharpening stone. That's when Yugito came around the corner and sat beside her. The two remained quiet for a few peaceful moments before the blonde finally broke the silence. You know Kirabai wasn't too happy about not being allowed to come with us, right? She asked with a slight smirk. Yugito chuckled and nodded. Yeah, sounds like our overly enthusiastic sensei, especially with Amoe, Kaoru, and Samui tagging along. He's pretty protective of them. So, you ready for your first big mission? She asked. Naruko nodded as she slid her blade back into its sheath. Yugito wrapped her arms gently around the blonde in a comforting embrace. Just promise me you and Shinku-chan will stay safe out there, alright? I want us all to come back together. Naruko sighed and returned the hug, wrapping an arm around her waist. I will, Yugito-chan. And hey, if anything goes wrong, maybe Nibi can knock some sense into me and bring me back on track, she joked, earning a soft chuckle from both Yugito and the Nibi within her. Seriously though, I'll be careful. Promise. She leaned over and placed a gentle kiss on Yugito's cheek. Yeah, just like the time you promised me you wouldn't go charging through that obstacle field chasing that dog, Yugito quipped. Hey, that was the lightning lady's prized poodle. And if I remember correctly, it was your fault I had to go after it. She bit you because you smelled like cats, Naruko teased. Yugito playfully rolled her eyes and stood up. Whatever, you dork. Come on, we're about an hour away from the hidden dock May mentioned. She took Naruko's hand and led her out of the cargo hold. Secret docking port. As the ship pulled into port, the group disembarked and followed May toward a hidden path that would lead them to the rebel camp. Along the way, a group of Kiri-nin appeared and blocked their route. One of the shinobi stepped forward, eyeing the group cautiously. Identify yourselves. Are you allies or not? He was tall, with dark spiky hair, reddish-brown eyes, and wore the standard Kiri Jonin attire. A massive broadsword was strapped to his back, with intricate designs carved into its hilt and base. Naruko raised an eyebrow as she looked at the man. Whoa, this guy looks a lot like Zabuza. Could they be related? She wondered. Before anyone else could speak, Mei stepped forward with a welcoming smile. Hello, Shinjin Momochi. The man blinked in surprise. Mei? You're alive? We thought you were lost during the naval battle. I would have been, if not for the children of the late 4th Hokage, she said, gesturing for the siblings to step forward. Shinjin's eyes widened when he recognized them. Is that Kushina Uzumaki? The Red Storm? One of the Kiri ninja whispered, pointing at her. Kushina smiled modestly and scratched the back of her head. Yes, that's me. These two are my children. We, along with my students and some of the Cloud Village shinobi, are here to support the rebellion. The Kiri ninja began murmuring in amazement. I can't believe it. The red storm is on our side. Her son looks just like the fourth Hokage. Do you think he knows the teleportation technique? Kushina sighed as the praise continued. Looks like I've got a fan club here too, she muttered, while the cloud shinobi chuckled. Meanwhile, Naruko approached Shinjin, still curious. Hey! Are you related to Zabuza Momochi? Shinjin nodded. Yeah, he's my younger brother. Why? You both give off a similar vibe, she said, smiling. Shinjin laughed. Yeah, we get that a lot. I'm known as the Storm of the Mist, and he's the Phantom of the Mist. I always told him not to rush into things, but he never listened. If I ever find him again, I'll definitely have a long talk with him. Naruko's sweat dropped slightly at the intense look in his eye. Well, it's a real honor to work alongside you, she said, offering a handshake. Shinjin looked at her for a moment, then smiled and shook her hand. Likewise. I'm curious to see the skills of the Yellow Flash's daughter. With introductions complete, Shinjin led the group toward the rebel camp. Rebel camp. The camp buzzed with energy. Kiri shinobi of all ranks, from Chunin to Anbu, moved about, coordinating supplies and assisting villagers who opposed the conflict. Some wore hunter masks, signaling their roles as trackers and scouts. Among them were members of bloodline clans like the Kaguya, Hyo, and Ketsueki, many of whom were tending to the younger children. Shinjin turned to the group. Now that Mei's back, we'll meet with the acting commander. The rest of you are free to explore, but don't stray too far. Kushina gathered a few key members. Kakashi, Anko, Yu Gao, Rin, you Cloud Anbu as well, come with me. We'll brief the leadership. Naruko, Shinku, Yugito, Karu, Samui, Amoe, you're free to look around. As the adults headed off, Shinku turned to the group. So, what now? Amoe stretched his arms. I'm just gonna find a nice tree and take a nap. He strolled away with his hands in his pockets. Lazy goof, Karu muttered before latching onto Naruko's arm with a smile. Come on, Naruko-chan. You and I can check things out, just the two of us. She gave a playful grin and gently tugged Naruko away. The blonde blinked a few times, then simply shrugged and went with her, leaving Yugito and Samui exchanging unimpressed looks. Karu turned back with a cheeky peace sign, which only made their expressions tighten. That girl has some nerve, Nibi huffed within Yugito's mind. She's always trying to get close to, wait, what? Nibi, I don't have feelings for Naruko. Yugito replied, flustered. Oh, please. You two are always together. You better speak up before someone else does, the two-tailed spirit said teasingly. But, Yugito stammered, face warm. Shinku slung her arms around both Samui and Yugito. Let's just check out the camp. Who knows what kind of neat stuff we'll find. The two girls sighed and followed her, their thoughts still lingering on Karu's earlier move. Main tent. Inside the tent, the leaders of the different divisions of the rebellion were deep in conversation, strategizing the next move in their mission to liberate Kirigakure. The meeting was suddenly interrupted when a voice called out urgently. Ao-san! Ao-san! Shouted a flustered voice. Ao sighed and turned to see Chojuro rushing in, out of breath. Chojuro, recognizable by his short, spiky blue hair and distinctive glasses, wore the attire of the Mist's elite, a blue striped shirt and camouflage-patterned pants. He carried the massive sword Haramkare on his back, carefully wrapped in protective cloth. What is it now, Chojuro? We're in the middle of a critical meeting, Ao said patiently, while Chojuro tried to catch his breath. She's back. Mei-san has returned, he exclaimed, eyes wide with emotion. What? That can't be. She was lost during the last mission against Yagura's fleet, said Enishi Yukimura, also known as the White Tiger of the Mist. He stood tall with short, white spiky hair, dressed in traditional white martial garments, and carried an elegant o-katana. Just then, a russet-haired woman entered the tent with a playful grin. Ouch, Enishi. That kind of doubt stings, Mei Terumi said with a dramatic pout, clearly enjoying the stunned expressions around her. And here I thought we were close friends. Mei? How is this possible? Enishi stammered. She might not have made it if it weren't for my children, came a familiar voice from behind Mei. Kushina Uzumaki walked in, and the room fell silent in astonishment. The Crimson Flash, gasped Koga, the head of the scouting unit, his shock mirroring the others. Mei. What is Lady Kushina doing here? Isn't she aligned with the Hidden Leaf? Enishi asked, confused. No, her family now lives in Kumagakure. They work as independent shinobi and have agreed to support our cause. Her daughters, Naruko Namikaze and Shinku Namikaze, found me when I washed ashore. I stayed with them until I recovered. The Raikage has also granted us aid. Some of his Onbu, Chunin, and Jonin have joined us, Mei explained. Benkei, a rugged veteran commander, stepped forward. And who else is with you, Kushina-sama? Please, no need for titles. As for others joining us, we have Kakashi Hitake, Rini Nuzuka, Anko Mitarashi, and Yugao Uzuki. The last two are my students, the others were students of my husband, Kushina said calmly. Whispers broke out among the leaders. These names were known far and wide, exceptional shinobi whose reputations carried immense weight. Kushina herself was ranked among the highest kunoichi, with skills that rivaled even the legendary Tsunade. This feels like a dream, Enishi muttered, until Kagura Kaguya pinched his arm with a cheeky grin. You said to pinch you, so I did, she said, causing a wave of chuckles to spread. Meanwhile, Naruko walked through the village beside Karo, who was holding onto her arm. The surroundings were bustling with activity, medical tents lined the area, and ninja were being treated by skilled medics. Karu's expression dimmed. Though she tried to remain strong, memories of being orphaned in the last conflict lingered in her heart. They heard a desperate cry nearby and rushed to the scene. A young kunoichi with raven black hair was supporting an injured comrade. Hang on, Akira. We're almost there, she said, struggling under his weight. You should have gone on without me, Kuroko, he murmured, clearly exhausted. Don't say that. You're not alone, she snapped, determined to keep him conscious. Naruko quickly stepped in, helping shift Akira's weight onto her own shoulders, while Karu took his other side. Kuroko sighed in relief and clutched her arm, which had been hurt in the scuffle. Thank you, she said quietly as a medic arrived to tend her wounds. Later, the three sat outside the medical tent. Kuroko now had fresh bandages and a more relaxed expression. A medic stepped out with good news. He's going to be fine. He'll need time to rest, but his injuries aren't serious, the medic explained with a reassuring smile. Thank goodness, Kuroko whispered, her voice full of gratitude. Naruko stood up. Come on, Karu. Let's check in with the others. Karu nodded and followed her. Night, rebel encampment. On a hilltop, the 6 leaders of the rebel forces stood tall with their platoons assembled behind them. Naruko stood beside Kakashi and Anko, all dressed in gear suited for the upcoming mission. Mei stood at the center, her sword Kaneheim secured on her back. Everyone, Mei began, raising her voice so all could hear, I'll be honest, tomorrow is uncertain. But we stand together with a shared dream, to reclaim our home and give a better future to those who follow. Protect each other, support one another. Tonight marks the beginning of something greater. She raised her fist. For Kiri. For Kiri. Echoed Enishi, Benkei, Kagura, Koga, Ao, and Shin Momochi in unison, their voices loud and proud. Mizukage Tower. In the tall tower, Yagura stood in solemn silence, Anbu by his side. Let them shout and rally. It won't change the outcome, he muttered. Hours later, Kirigakure in battle. The village trembled with the sounds of battle, clashing weapons, defensive techniques, and strategic movements. Naruko and Kakashi moved swiftly through the chaos. Naruko dodged a broadsword and countered with a precise, chakra-infused punch that sent the attacker flying. A chain suddenly wrapped around her arm as 5 opponents approached with weapons ready. Naruko calmly activated her Sharingan, and with a quiet Chidori Nagashi, lightning erupted around her, stunning the attackers long enough for her to safely disengage. Kakashi, having just neutralized another foe, noticed the Sharingan in Naruko's eyes and did a double take. I must be seeing things. The battle's playing tricks on me, he muttered, refocusing on his own attackers. Nearby, Naruko noticed a group of bloodline users cornered by Anbu launching a water dragon jutsu. Without hesitation, she slammed her hands on the ground. Earth style, Earth Fortress. Massive walls of earth rose, shielding the group. Before the surprised Anbu could react, Naruko appeared behind them with a stealth technique, using her chains to safely subdue and immobilize them with controlled bursts of electricity. She gave a small nod to the bloodline users, who smiled and rushed off to support their teammates. Leaping onto a rooftop, Naruko spotted a massive, glowing blue feline in the distance, aiding the rebels. Well, Looks like Kitty-chan's got that under control, she said with a smirk. She then performed a summoning technique, and a graceful figure named Hitomi appeared beside her. Took you long enough, Hitomi said with a playful scowl. Naruko grinned. There's plenty of action left. Just how I like it, Hitomi replied, vanishing into the battle with a flash of red. Naruko turned toward a distant explosion near the Mizukage Tower. Time to check that out, she whispered, and with a blink, warped away with her space-time technique. Anko had just launched a precise kick to the back of a Jonin's head before swiftly rearing her fist back. Sinai Tajashu, many hidden shadow snake hands, she exclaimed. A flurry of large snakes extended from the sleeves of her coat, expertly binding and immobilizing nearby Onbu in her path. After summoning them back, she turned to witness Shinjin pin 2 Kiri Nin down before drawing his buster blade and gently swatting aside 3 more with the flat of his blade. Anko appeared beside him, effortlessly deflecting a volley of shuriken. You know, ever since this started, I haven't seen you truly use that blade, she remarked. Shinjin gave a subtle smirk under his mask. That's because frequent use dulls its edge and wears it down. Repairs are a hassle, and this weapon isn't easy to maintain. I only draw it fully for those I deem worthy. With a swift series of hand seals, he called out. Suten, Suikodan no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Shark Missile Technique. A towering stream of water emerged from a fountain nearby, forming into a massive shark-shaped figure that surged forward and collided with a group of enemy ninja, sending water splashing in all directions. Nice. My turn, Anko responded, quickly weaving signs. Doten, Dohebiden, Earth Release, Earth Snake Bullet. The ground ahead softened and twisted, shaping into a mud-crafted serpent that sprang forward, targeting several Chunin. Shinjin let out an impressed whistle as he held a Jonin in a controlled hold. Not bad, he said, as the battle around them continued. Yu Gao and Kushina moved in perfect sync with their swords, seamlessly switching between offense and defense against Kiri Nin. Shinku gracefully avoided strikes from 2 enemies wielding broadswords, ducking low just as the blades swept above her. Before they could attack again, Kagura intercepted with twin ivory katanas, blocking their path. From above, Amoe descended with his O katana in reverse grip. Kumo Ryu, Mikazuki Kiri, Cloud Style, Crescent Moon Arc. He swept his blade in a graceful arc, lightly tapping them down and disarming them. Sensing new opponents approaching, Amoe quickly shifted his stance. Kumo Ryu, Uragiri, Cloud Style, Reverse Arc. With a swift, backward swing, he disarmed and disabled them with precision. Impressive moves, kid, Kagura noted with a smile. Amoe shrugged modestly. Just doing my part. You've got skills and humility. I like that, Kagura replied. Shinku vanished in a blur, skillfully disarming several ninja with her katana using the Shukuchiki technique. She reappeared nearby and sheathed her blade, whispering. I hope Ni-san is alright, before moving to assist Rin, who was tending to the injured under Cloud Onbu protection. Mizukage Tower. Mei emerged first from the thick smoke, skidding to a stop on the rooftop, blade in hand. Enishi landed next to her, the sleeve of his jacket torn. With a frustrated grunt, he discarded it, revealing a sleeveless shirt underneath. Enishi, are you alright? Mei asked with concern. I'm fine. Just had a close call, he replied. Yagura, clad in his formal robes, appeared before them, calm and composed. Just because your attack caught me off guard doesn't mean you'll succeed, he said. Mei's expression turned serious. Yagura, do you truly not see the harm that's been done? The village, the people. All torn apart. What caused you to change so drastically? I've only cleansed this land of conflict, Yagura replied. And I will continue my mission to protect this world from what causes unrest. Those who oppose that are enemies of peace. A calm voice interrupted him. Interesting philosophy, said Naruko, approaching them with her Sharingan activated and a sleek katana in hand. Enishi's and Mei's eyes widened in surprise. She has the Sharingan? Enishi whispered. Yagura narrowed his gaze. Another outsider with inherited power, he said coldly. You speak boldly for someone entrusted with a Baijuu, Naruko replied, remaining composed. You house the 3 tails, correct? Yagura's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? Naruko smiled slightly. Let's just say. I'm familiar with your kind of strength. But I'm not here to boast. I'm here because I can see the truth, you're being controlled. What do you mean? Mei asked, startled. There's a genjutsu clouding his judgment, Naruko explained. A powerful one, likely cast from afar. I can see it with my eyes. Enishi scoffed, readying his sword. Breaking it won't be easy. Yagura is in full sync with his Baijuu. Naruko nodded. So am I, in a way. You could say. I represent the next evolution. Yagura entered a defensive stance, staff in hand. Enishi and Mei followed suit with their own weapons. If he activates his cloaked form or his full Baijuu abilities, leave it to me, Naruko instructed. Are you sure? Enishi asked. Positive, Naruko affirmed, her Sharingan spinning. She flung a kunai into the air. Kunai Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Kunai Clone Technique. The air shimmered with dozens of copies of the kunai, all directed at Yagura. He spun his staff to deflect them, unaware that Enishi was already circling around for a strike. Shugeki Tosai, Enishi shouted as he enhanced his slash with a powerful kick, forcing Yagura's staff aside. Mei followed up, flames igniting her sword. Homura Dama, Burning Soul. Her blade arced with heat as she swung, only for the figure to dissolve into water. A water clone, she muttered as the real Yagura reappeared behind her. Enishi leapt upward. Shuroitu, White Sickle. With two sweeping arcs of wind, he launched crescent-shaped attacks. Yagura evaded but was met midair by Naruko, who clashed blades with him. Chidori Nagashi, Thousand Bird Current. Lightning erupted from Naruko, disrupting Yagura's movement. Enishi followed with a palm strike, and Mei finished the combo with a well-placed upward kick, sending Yagura flying. Naruko appeared behind him. Cage Buyo, Leaf Shadow Dance. Black bands wrapped Yagura in midair. Emote Renge, Initial Lotus. She spun rapidly, guiding Yagura into a controlled descent toward the rooftop, ending in a powerful impact that shook the tower. As the dust settled, the form of Yagura dissolved into water once again. There, Naruko said, eyes narrowing. It's not over. A figure landed across the rooftop, Yagura, unharmed, glaring at them. You've proven strong, he said, but this battle is far from finished. Suten, Suisho-ha, water release, water shockwave. He summoned a vortex of water that exploded into a crashing wave. Naruko swiftly performed hand signs. Doten, Doryuaki, earth release, earth-style wall. A massive barrier rose, shielding the team. Enishi scaled the wall, while Mei circled around with hand signs. Yotan, Yoganami, lava release, lava wave. She expelled molten lava across the rooftop, forcing Yagura to respond with a strong water jet, which cooled the lava and caused thick steam to rise. Did you forget my second Kekkei Genkai? Mei said with a smile. Futten, Komu no Jutsu, boil release, skilled mist technique. A mist filled the air, surrounding Yagura. Did it work? Enishi wondered aloud, but a large chakra construct burst forth, destroying their earthen wall. Enishi was saved mid-fall by a soft cushion of sand. What the? He gasped. Another sand wave rose to shield Mei from an incoming attack. She blinked in surprise. Sand? But how? Naruko stood with a sealed gourd, the sand receding into it. Stay alert. That mist only made him more determined, she said, focused. I noticed, Enishi muttered. Yagura emerged, unamused. Enough games, he said sternly. Naruko drew her blade. Good. Now I'll show you what I can really do. With that, she vanished, reappearing behind Yagura. Their weapons clashed with sparks as the real battle began. Naruko smirked as Yagura's eyes widened in surprise. A shadow clone appeared behind him, prepared to intercept. Quick to react, Yagura pressed a switch on his staff, sending out a hook that struck the clone, causing it to vanish instantly. Seizing the opportunity, Naruko swiftly grabbed his shoulder, used the staff as a springboard, and landed a precise knee strike to his chin. Twisting gracefully midair, Naruko landed back on the ground. Yagura spun around, swinging the hooked end of his staff, which wrapped around Naruko's arm. With quick thinking, she channeled energy through her blade and cleanly severed the chain. Yagura frowned, only for Enishi to appear above him, his sword lifted. Shoha Tosai, palm blade rush. Enishi called out, pushing forward with his palm to increase the force of his strike. Yagura blocked it, but the sheer pressure created a tremor beneath them. Meanwhile, Mei took advantage of the moment to slide low and disrupt Yagura's footing, causing him to stumble. Enishi followed with a roundhouse kick, catching Yagura on the jaw and sending him tumbling across the area. Shaking off the impact, Yagura looked up and heard a sharp chirping sound. He spotted Naruko descending rapidly, her left arm glowing with white lightning. "Chidori," she announced, thrusting her arm forward. However, before contact could be made, Yagura teleported out of the way. Naruko's hand struck the ground instead, her focus sharp. Yagura reappeared with his staff raised, aiming downward, but Enishi blocked it just in time, countering with a palm strike to Yagura's torso. "I'm not done yet." Wind release, soothing breeze. Enishi added, launching Yagura into the air and sending him into a nearby structure, which lit up with a harmless burst of energy upon impact. Naruko freed herself and stood tall again. "Thanks," she said to Enishi with a smile. "No problem. But I've got to ask. How do you have the Sharingan and manipulate sand? Weren't the Uchiha said to be nearly gone?" he questioned. "All in good time," Naruko replied, eyes closing briefly as they shifted into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. "Right now, we've got a very determined challenger to face." An energetic surge burst from the building Yagura had landed in. He emerged in a cloaked form, more powerful and animal-like. With a mighty roar, he prepared an intense energy sphere by combining two contrasting chakra types within his mouth. Naruko's eyes widened. "Enishi, Mei, grab my arms," she called urgently, surprising them both. "Why?" Enishi asked, just as Naruko grabbed both their arms. The powerful energy attack launched toward them at incredible speed. A moment later, a blinding explosion rocked the village, sending smoke into the sky. When it cleared, the tower was gone, and the trio was nowhere in sight. Far from the village, the three safely landed, Naruko letting out a breath of relief. "That was way too close," she muttered. The others stood beside her, dusting themselves off. "That was space-time ninjutsu. But I didn't see a marker," Enishi thought aloud. "No other option now," Naruko said, looking to Mei and Enishi. "I have to face Yagura on my own." "Can you fully harness your tailed spirit's energy?" Mei asked. Naruko nodded confidently. "Yes. My mentor, Kirabai, trained me at a special temple where I learned to work in harmony with my tailed spirit. But I need you two to stay back, I don't want you caught up in any stray energy." Reluctantly, they agreed. "Just be careful, Naruko," Mei said gently. "I will," she replied, smiling. "I'll lead him away from the village, to the shore where no one will be affected." She disappeared again. Naruko reappeared at the destroyed site. Yagura, in his powerful form, growled as he searched for them. "Hey, Yagura!" Naruko called out playfully, capturing his attention. She made a funny face and teased him. "Are you sure you're a cage? I've seen academy students with better aim." Her tone was light-hearted, intended to provoke, knowing that the beast's instincts would cause a predictable reaction. As expected, Yagura charged forward, but Naruko teleported away effortlessly, perching on a rooftop. "That was intense," she said with a smirk. "I thought you said you had full control, Yagura." Yagura leapt from the crater, spotting Naruko sprinting toward the village outskirts. She led him toward an open field near the coast, where no one else would be at risk. As she landed in the quiet clearing, surrounded by mountains and ocean breeze, Yagura touched down with a rumble. "You can't escape me," he growled. Naruko's grin grew wider. "Who said I was running? I brought you here so I wouldn't have to hold back." Golden energy shimmered around her as a warm cloak enveloped her form, symbolizing her bond with the tailed spirit. Her features shifted slightly, claws formed on her hands and feet, her eyes took on a glowing red hue, and a radiant dome surrounded her, bursting into a pillar of golden light. Yagura could only stare, wide-eyed. Naruko's voice echoed calmly, yet powerfully, through the field. "Now you'll see what it means to trust your spirit completely, and to fight for your village with everything you've got." Back in Kiri, Yugito unleashed a powerful sonic roar infused with her tailed beast's energy, sending a group of Jonin tumbling into nearby rubble. Just as she prepared to advance, she paused, her gaze lifting to a sudden, radiant pillar of golden light. Samui, having just disarmed a Chunin, noticed Yugito's focus. "Yugito, what is it?" she asked with concern. "It's Naruko," Yugito replied, her voice laced with awe. "She's drawing on her tailed beast's energy, but this isn't the usual chakra from the 9 tails. According to Nico, it feels far stronger than that." Samui's eyes widened in surprise, only to grow even wider when a calm, feminine voice chimed in behind them. "She's absolutely right." They turned to see a red-haired woman with striking red, slit-like eyes. Hitomi stood confidently, gazing up toward Yugito's position with a familiar smirk. Well, kitty cat. How's life treating you?" she teased playfully. Yugito's eyes widened in recognition, and the Nibi briefly surfaced, speaking through her in surprise. Hitomi? How did you escape your host? She asked, nearly shouting in disbelief. Hitomi simply chuckled. Now that's a story for another time. Samui looked between them, clearly stunned, but the focus quickly shifted again. Elsewhere. Kushina, supporting an injured Koga toward the infirmary, paused mid-step as she noticed the massive pillar of light in the distance. Her expression softened, and she whispered, Sochi, please don't push yourself too far. With Naruko and Yagura. As the glowing pillar faded, Naruko stood in her version 2 form, a radiant mixture of golden and shadowy chakra cloaking her like armor. Her silhouette resembled a powerful, elegant wolf-like guardian, complete with 10 flowing tails of chakra. Red light glowed in her eyes, and her form radiated strength. Yagura stood frozen, stunned by the transformation. With a thunderous step, Naruko advanced. In a flash of golden light, she disappeared, and reappeared before Yagura, gently yet firmly placing a chakra-wrapped hand on his shoulder and sending him tumbling into the earth, creating a wide, shaking crater. A surge of water suddenly launched toward Naruko. Without flinching, she blocked the torrent with one hand, the force only pushing her back slightly. Chakra-formed arms reached out to restrain her, but she gracefully countered them using her tails, gently severing their connection and dispersing the energy in a harmless wave. She followed with a series of glowing orbs, sending them toward Yagura's last location. The explosions of light lit up the area, though they caused no harm to the surroundings beyond scattering energy and smoke. Yagura emerged from the haze, only to be greeted by Naruko's next move. She launched forward with incredible speed, her chakra-powered fist extended. With a focused strike, she gently propelled Yagura back through the forest, gliding across the sand and landing with a splash into the ocean, creating a massive wave that rolled gently to the shore. Naruko touched down softly, taking a deep breath as her energy receded and her true form returned. Looks like my body still needs some time to fully handle the Jubi's power, she murmured to herself as she observed the large crater and glowing trail she had created. I may have gone a bit too far, she said with a small smile, then disappeared and reappeared atop a rock overlooking the beach. Come on now. I know you're still out there, she said playfully, noticing bubbles forming at the ocean's surface. Her eyes sparkled. Looks like my aquatic friend isn't ready to give up just yet. The bubbles continued to rise as the water began to swirl, revealing the towering figure of the Sanbi, Kyodegame, gently surfacing from the deep. Naruko stood calmly atop a large rock, her eyes focused on the massive form of the Sanbi no Kyodegame, the three-tailed giant turtle. Water glistened and trickled down the creature's broad, crab-like shell and 3 shrimp-like tails. Despite its immense size, it bore the signs of previous battles, with one eye permanently closed, leaving it vulnerable to well-placed attacks. That's your true form? Looks a little like something Yugito-chan might have imagined after eating some bad seafood, Naruko said lightheartedly, giving a cheeky grin. The tailed beast growled at her comment, clearly not amused. You dare to make light of me, even now? Yagura's voice echoed through the area, deep and filled with fury. I'll ensure that everyone learns not to challenge me in this way. With that, Yagura let out a roar so intense it parted the nearby waters and sent waves of sand scattering across the landscape. Naruko's golden hair fluttered from the force of the blast, but she remained unmoved on her perch. Wow, you might want to try a breath mint, she teased, waving her hand in front of her face playfully. Yagura, clearly not in the mood for jokes, raised his enormous hand and brought it down with force, shaking the very ground beneath them. When the dust settled, Yagura expected to find Naruko overwhelmed. But to his surprise, she was gone, only a faint imprint where she had stood. His frustration grew until he looked up to find her calmly perched on his head, her hand glowing with electric blue energy. Lightning style, raging thunder, Naruko declared, releasing a surge of electricity that danced across the Sanbi's body. The energy coursed through every limb, causing the giant beast to howl in discomfort. With a graceful leap, Naruko landed before the beast once more. As Yagura swung an arm toward her, she phased through the attack effortlessly. When the beast tried to follow up with another strike, she caught its hand mid-swing, stopping it cold with surprising strength. You really need to learn some better manners, she said kindly, before gripping one of his fingers and lifting the entire limb out of the water. With a swift movement, she tossed him over her shoulder and sent him crashing into the shore, sending sand and stone flying everywhere. Let's take this somewhere less damp, Naruko said, activating her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Kamui. The world shimmered and rippled before Yagura vanished into a swirling void. Moments later, a vortex opened above a ruined village, and Yagura's tailed beast form came crashing down. Naruko appeared atop a crumbled building nearby, her eyes glowing with power. Here. This place will work. No one around, and you're completely out of your element. The Sanbi roared, rising to its feet and scanning for its opponent. Naruko casually whistled from a distance, drawing his attention. With a smirk, she waved at him, a playful gesture meant to provoke without malice. Yagura growled and hurled a boulder in response. Naruko's demeanor shifted as her chakra flared, forming a golden cloak of lightning. "Thanks, E-sensei," she murmured, recalling the training that taught her the lightning release armor technique. Her hair spiked with the surge of energy. As the boulder flew toward her, Naruko met it head-on, shattering it with a single punch. The beast followed up with another massive projectile, a building this time, but she vanished before it landed, reappearing above Yagura with her leg poised for a strike. "Guillotine drop," she shouted, bringing her heel down with force. The impact created a massive crater and sent debris flying. She landed lightly nearby, armor still active, when a gray hand lashed out toward her. With a clean motion, she severed several of its fingers and leapt into the air. "Fire style, dragon flame missile," she called, unleashing a blazing stream of white-hot fire. The flames scorched the beast, causing it to retreat momentarily. Naruko landed behind one of its massive tails and dodged a follow-up swipe, leaping into a somersault and smashing her chakra-infused fist into its shell. A loud crack echoed from the impact. Enraged, Yagura unleashed a roar that shook the entire area. Naruko was flung backward through a few broken structures, but she recovered quickly, landing with a slide and shaking off the hit. "Okay. Now he's getting serious," she said as she leapt onto another rooftop. To her shock, the beast began gathering massive amounts of chakra, a swirling sphere of black and white energy taking shape in its mouth. "He's not really going to use that, is he?" she whispered, eyes wide. That kind of technique could destroy a huge part of the country. Elsewhere with the rebel faction. Kagura Kaguya had just disarmed Akiri Onbu when she felt an overwhelming energy in the air. Turning, her eyes widened as she saw the enormous sphere gathering above the battlefield. "No. He wouldn't," she whispered in disbelief. Benkei landed beside her. "Kagura, we've secured the eastern sector, but," his words stopped short as he followed her gaze. "That attack. It's too dangerous." Mei, Enishi, Yugito, and others saw it too, a glowing mass of power too unstable to control. "If that's released, it could cause a catastrophe," Yugito said, watching in horror. Even some of the opposing ninja froze in place, unsure of what to do. Back at the battlefield, Naruko watched the growing sphere, calculating desperately. "If I attack now and it drops, this whole area will be wiped out. But if I wait and he fires, there's no telling the damage." Then, an idea struck. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a special tri-pronged kunai marked with intricate sealing symbols. "I really hope this works," she murmured, holding the kunai tight. Just as the Sanbi released its enormous chakra sphere, sending debris flying from its speed, Naruko steadied herself. "Not today," she whispered, performing a rapid sequence of hand seals. The sphere approached rapidly, but just before impact, a barrier of swirling energy emerged, filled with glowing kanji. The ball of energy began to shrink, drawn inward by the seal. "What? That was my strongest move," Yagura exclaimed in disbelief. The attack disappeared completely, and standing at the center of it all was Naruko, both hands gripping her Hiraishin kunai, her eyes calm and focused. Mei was the first to look up, surprised to see that aside from the large trenches etched into the earth, everything was still intact, and Naruko stood completely unharmed. The other shinobi followed her gaze, and their eyes widened in disbelief when they realized nothing had happened to her. "What just happened? How did she manage that?" Enishi asked, just as a distant explosion echoed. They turned toward the ocean and saw a shimmering blue dome forming above the waves, as towering surges of water crashed into the cliffs, causing the ground beneath them to tremble. That technique. Was that a space-time barrier ninjutsu? Yugao wondered aloud, while Kakashi remained silent, deep in thought. That was very similar to what Minato-sensei used. When did Naruko learn such advanced Jukoken techniques? And her eyes. They changed just then, he thought as his gaze narrowed. His eyes suddenly widened in astonishment. Both of Naruko's eyes had taken on the distinct pattern of the Mangekyo Sharingan. She really does have the Sharingan. And not just that, the Mangekyo version. How did she awaken it? Yagura, now in a transformed state, let out a frustrated growl and charged toward Naruko. Yet she stood her ground, perfectly calm and focused. What is she doing? She needs to move, Kagura exclaimed in worry. Watch out, Naruko. Kairuo called, as the Sanbi swung a massive fist forward, only for it to be stopped by a golden, skeletal-like hand made entirely of energy. What in the world? Yagura gasped. This has gone on long enough, Naruko said, her tone calm and clear. A powerful aura of vibrant chakra surrounded her, flaring with warmth and energy. The skeletal hand soon transformed, gaining shape and form, until it became a towering humanoid figure clad in armor reminiscent of a noble samurai from ancient times. The helmet was shaped like a fox's head, fierce but majestic, and at its side was a sheathed katana. With a gentle yet forceful motion, the armored hand redirected the attack and gently but firmly sent Yagura's form backward, skidding across the landscape. I didn't expect to need this technique in such a battle, especially for the first time, Naruko admitted. The eyes of her avatar glowed softly, and as the spirit moved with purpose, she continued, but it's time to finish this, or the damage may become too great. The ethereal warrior reached for its katana, which immediately ignited with radiant energy like flames as it was drawn. Yagura leapt from the debris and rushed at her in a flurry of motion. Charging in without thinking. Just like a wild creature, Naruko commented gently, as a glowing shield appeared on the spirit's left arm. The Sanbi crashed into the barrier with force, but the spirit remained steady. The shield pushed Yagura back, and the spirit countered with a sweeping arc of its blade that struck true. Yagura stumbled. That blade. How can it affect me like this? The spirit defended against another strike, then responded with a series of swift movements that disrupted Yagura's balance. Pieces of chakra-enhanced shell broke away under the precision of the spirit's strikes. Yagura attempted to recover, trying to restore lost strength, but nothing happened. Why can't I regain my energy? What did you do? He asked in alarm. Naruko answered calmly, I'm absorbing your connection to the creature's chakra. No. Stop this. You can't, Yagura cried out as more of his transformed energy was drawn away. Soon, he fell to one knee. The spirit gently sheathed its blade, signaling the end of the encounter. It's over, Yagura. Let peace begin, Naruko said with quiet determination. She took a step forward, but suddenly her expression shifted as a wave of discomfort washed over her. She clutched her chest, visibly struggling. Everyone watching gasped. What's happening? She was fine a moment ago, Mei asked, turning to Kushina, who looked deeply concerned. Has Naruko ever shown signs of illness? She asked. No, Naruko and Shinku have always been healthy, Kushina replied, her voice filled with worry. Naruko dropped to one knee, taking deep breaths and trying to steady herself. The shimmering spirit around her faded back into its skeletal form, then vanished. Her vision blurred slightly, but she forced herself to stand. I should have listened to Hitomi-chan and waited until my body could fully adjust, she whispered. Yagura staggered to his feet, glaring. You don't understand what you've done. Everything I worked for. He hurled several kunai with paper tags, which exploded on contact, but as the smoke cleared, a protective shield still surrounded Naruko. She walked forward steadily. You're nearly out of chakra, Yagura. Please, stop this now, Naruko said, though a hint of strain laced her words. Yagura refused to yield, summoning his staff and launching himself into the air. But the attack was deflected, and he tumbled to the ground, disarmed. Naruko's spiritual armor faded completely as she closed the distance. When Yagura rose again, a gloved hand gently but firmly pinned him against a wall. Naruko placed her hand near his stomach, her Sharingan spinning. Kai, she said gently, helping to dispel the clouded look in his eyes. As clarity returned, she summoned glowing symbols representing the 5 elements around her fingertips. Gagyo Fun, 5-element seal, Naruko said softly, pressing the seal gently onto Yagura's abdomen. His expression relaxed as his body gave into exhaustion. Underground base, Madara. In a dimly lit underground base, Madara sat calmly in the shadows with his legs crossed. His eyes suddenly opened, the glow of his Sharingan revealing his unease. What's this? The genjutsu I cast on Yagura. It's been undone. That shouldn't be possible. He attempted to form a hand seal, only for a new pair of powerful Sharingan eyes to materialize in front of him, their glow catching him by surprise. No. There's someone out there whose Sharingan rivals mine? That's unexpected. He narrowed his gaze, lips pressed into a thin line. It doesn't matter. Whoever did this will answer for it. Dash. Back with Naruko. Naruko gently set the subdued man down, his breathing labored as he dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. Naruko, Kushina shouted from the cliff above, ready to leap down. But before she could move, a red blur landed beside her daughter, kneeling with concern etched into her features. All eyes widened at the sight of 9 flowing foxtails and a pair of fox ears on Naruko. Kushina quickly made her way down, followed by others. Naruko was struggling, coughing harshly while holding her chest. I warned you not to use that technique so soon, Naruko. Your body hasn't adapted to the strain, even as the new Jinchūriki of the 10 tails. But don't worry, your life force remains stable, the figure beside her reassured. Naruko gave a weak smile. Next time I do something reckless, make sure I learn from it. Those were her last words before exhaustion claimed her. Dash. 2 weeks later. The first thing Naruko saw as she opened her eyes was the interior of a softly lit recovery tent. She let out a groan, sat up slowly, and blinked away the fatigue. Her shirt had been removed for medical care, but she was still dressed modestly in her usual shinobi pants. Curled beside her bed was Hitomi, in her fox kit form. Naruko smiled and gently patted her head. Hitomi stirred, blinking open her eyes before transforming into her hybrid form and immediately embracing Naruko. It's about time you woke up, Hitomi said warmly. Everyone was so worried about you. Naruko ran a hand through her hair. How long was I out? 2 weeks, Hitomi replied as she sat beside her. After you used Susanoo to neutralize Yagura's tailed beast and sealed his chakra, the remaining forces surrendered. I also explained to your mother and the others how I'm no longer bound by darkness, though I'm still connected to you. I guess I've got some explaining to do, Naruko said, sighing. She glanced at the nearby gear, changed into her clothes, and stepped out of the tent. Moments later, 2 blurs crashed into her in a tight hug, Kaoru and Yugito. Naruko winced slightly but returned the hug with a smile. Hey, ladies, she greeted. Yugito promptly gave her a light, frustrated tap on the head. That's for worrying us. You were unconscious for 2 weeks. Kaoru chuckled. Your mom and sister were beside themselves. Better go see them before they track you down. I didn't want to hurt anyone during the fight, Naruko explained. I avoided transforming fully because it would have caused unnecessary harm. I thought the new technique would finish things safely. You're a soft-hearted one, Kaoru said with a grin. Now go before I drag you there myself. Naruko saluted and teleported away, landing beside Kakashi, who was calmly reading beneath a tree. Good to see you up, Naruko. Kushina and Shinku have been restless. Yeah, Yugito already gave me a lecture, Naruko replied with a sheepish smile. Kakashi's expression turned serious. You'll need to explain how you use the Sharingan. And why the 9 tails is outside the seal. Naruko nodded. I will, Ni-san. But first, I need to see my family. Kakashi gave her a rare smile. I'm proud of you, Naruko. Dash. Family reunion. Naruko walked into the tent and saw her sister, Shinku, resting peacefully. She quietly approached, gently brushing a strand of hair from Shinku's face and gave her a soft kiss on the forehead. Shinku slowly opened her eyes, and immediately teared up. Aniki? She whispered. Naruko nodded, and Shinku leapt into her arms, hugging her tightly as tears streamed down her face. Sorry for making you worry, Shinku-chan, Naruko said, embracing her. Before she could ask about their mother, Naruko was suddenly enveloped in a tight group hug from Kushina, Rin, and Anko. She gasped slightly, overwhelmed by their affection. Minna. I can't breathe, Naruko strained, though she was clearly touched by their concern. Nearby, Yugao asked, should we help her? Kakashi shook his head. Not unless you want to be next. Trust me, they're very passionate when upset. Yugao shivered. Point taken. Dash. The truth unfolds. Later, Naruko led her family and friends into a quiet forest clearing. Why are we out here? Anko asked. That's when Hitomi appeared. Sorry. I was chasing butterflies again, she said with a sheepish smile. The others quickly took defensive stances. Everyone, please relax, Naruko said. Hitomi helped us during the war. She's my ally. But how can you be sure? Rin asked. I'm connected to her through a seal. She cannot act without my permission, and if needed, I can seal her again. Also, Naruko closed her eyes, then reopened them to reveal the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, drawing gasps from everyone present. Your eyes, Kushina whispered in disbelief. Naruko performed hand signs and surrounded them with a barrier. This is to ensure no one hears what I'm about to share. Now, please, look into my eyes. They obeyed, and the world shifted around them. Inside the Tsukiyomi realm, they found themselves in a strange landscape with red skies and a glowing crimson moon. Their bodies appeared outlined, as though drawn in white ink against shadowed shapes. Relax, Hitomi said. Naruko brought us into her mental realm using Tsukiyomi. Naruko appeared in a swirl of fire, older in appearance. Her outfit resembled a blend of elite shinobi gear and the traditional robes of a Hokage. Her eyes were sharp, her presence calm yet powerful. I control everything in this realm, Naruko explained. With a snap, the world shifted to a peaceful meadow beneath a starlit sky. This is a new technique I developed while mastering my eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi stepped forward. That still doesn't explain how you got those eyes. Or how you performed that advanced technique against Yagura. Naruko nodded. I'm not originally from this timeline. Let me show you what I've lived through. For the next several hours, they watched Naruko's life unfold. They saw how she grew up misunderstood, how her parents had once sacrificed themselves for her, how she struggled for acceptance, and the battles she fought to protect her village. They witnessed her rise as the sixth Hokage, her efforts to unite the villages, and the war against Madara and Sasuke. They watched as Naruko used an advanced seal to absorb dangerous power and prevent catastrophe, transforming into a new Jinchūriki of balance. Back to reality. They returned to the forest in silence. All of that actually happened? Anko asked. Naruko nodded gently. Kushina clenched her fists. So it was Madara behind everything? Yes, Naruko answered. He believed he could reshape the world to his vision. But his actions caused a great deal of pain. In the end, his power became mine. Is he still in this timeline? Rin asked, eyes narrowing. Hitomi growled softly. Yes, she is. Even in her weakened state, that troublesome person used those cursed eyes of hers to make me lose control and attack your village. She even managed to trap the Yondaime Mizukage in a powerful genjutsu, influencing his actions and leading to the tragic events that followed. That person is the embodiment of evil, and I swear, the next time I encounter her, I'll make sure she regrets it. The nine-tailed vixen growled. Naruko placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. All in due time, Hitomi-chan. We have other threats to consider as well, like Orochimaru and Danzo, for example, Naruko stated, her expression becoming more serious as the others nodded in agreement. The Akatsuki may be quiet for a while, which means Orochimaru and Danzo will likely be making moves to destabilize Konoha in their own ways. They must be dealt with quickly, and we also need to warn the other Jinchūriki. She explained. Easier said than done, Naruko. Anko commented. Danzo can easily erase any evidence connected to him or his organization, and Orochimaru hasn't been spotted for a while. Naruko smirked. Oh, I already know where Orochimaru is hiding. And as for Danzo, he'll be dealt with soon. He's caused too much harm to my family, and I plan to make sure he's stopped for good. But what about the other Jinchūriki, Naruko? We already know Yugito and Kirabai hold the Nibi and Hachibi, and Yagura is the holder of the Sanbi, but we don't know where the others are. Shiku asked, his eyes filled with curiosity. Naruko's grin widened. That's where my knowledge of certain techniques comes in handy. I already know who the host of the Ichibi is. She's from Sunagakure and is the Yondaime Kazekage's younger daughter. The holder of the Rakubi is traveling across the neutral countries, the Nanabi is in Takigakure, and the hosts of the Inbi and Gobi are in self-exile in Iwagakure. She explained, earning wide-eyed looks from the group. So what's your plan? Yugao asked. Naruko pushed her hair back and looked determined. My goal is to make contact with them before the Akatsuki can track them down. After that, I need to handle Orochimaru, since he and his sound village will be inactive for about a year. I plan to destroy as many of his bases as I can during that time. All in all, I have a lot to do, Naruko said as she deactivated the barrier and stood up. But for now, let's go join the celebration with the rebels and commemorate the end of this war, she said with a smile, and the others shared the same sentiment. This time, I'll make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Yagura was in a recovery room, feeling a slight exhaustion. Slowly, he opened his eyes, seeing the white ceiling above. He sat up, wearing a hospital robe, and rubbed his head in mild discomfort, then looked around. Where am I? He asked quietly to himself. So you're finally awake, huh, Yagura-san? A voice came from the corner, and stepping out of the shadows was Naruko. May I ask who you are? Yagura inquired, looking at the blonde woman, who smiled back at him. I'm a friend, and I was the one who freed you from the genjutsu you were placed under, Naruko explained. Yagura blinked, his confusion evident. Genjutsu? I don't remember. He paused for a moment, and then his eyes widened. Wait, I do remember seeing a pair of crimson-red eyes with 3 tomoe-like markings surrounding the pupil. After that, everything is blank. Were they similar to these? Naruko asked as she activated her Sharingan. Yagura's eyes widened in recognition. Yes, exactly like those eyes. But the person who wielded them wore an Anbu-like mask. The only thing I remember is hearing that my actions would bring his goals to fruition. After that, nothing, Yagura said with a sense of frustration. What has happened since then? He asked, looking to Naruko, who now had a serious expression. Naruko began to explain what had happened while he was under the genjutsu, describing how he was manipulated into starting a tragic conflict that resulted in many lives lost. After hearing everything, Yagura seemed horrified and deeply regretful. I can't believe all of this has happened. My village. My people. What have I done? He placed his hand over his face, clearly distraught. Yagura-san, you are not to blame for what happened, Naruko said gently. The person who controlled you is the one responsible for this. They did this to weaken your village, and when we find them, they will be dealt with. Yagura removed his hand and sighed deeply, his expression weighed with sorrow. I may not have been directly responsible, but the villagers and shinobi under my rule may never accept me as their leader again. I have no choice but to step down and pass on my title. The question is, who can take my place? I have a suggestion, Naruko replied. Why not have Mai Terumi become the next Mizukage? She has the qualities to be a great leader. She has fought for her people for years, and her powerful Kekkei Genkai make her a formidable foe. Yagura thought for a moment, his hand rubbing his chin. Mai Terumi, yes. I remember her from when we were children. She was compassionate, yet fiery, and her aura made it clear that she was not someone to cross, Naruko chuckled in response. Ain't that the truth? Especially with Kunoichi, who can be more dangerous than even a Baijuo. I should know, since I'm living with 6 of them, Naruko added with humor in her voice. Meanwhile, in another part of the village, Kushina, Hitomi, Shinku, Anko, Yugao, and Rin each sneezed. Anyway, would you like me to bring her here? Naruko asked. Yagura nodded, and in a moment, Naruko disappeared, warping out of the room. A few minutes later, she returned with Mai, who appeared a bit sheepish, and Naruko, sporting a black eye. Yagura blinked in confusion. What happened? He asked. She sucker punched me, thinking I was one of her fans, Naruko muttered. Note to self, don't get on Mai's bad side. Mai blushed in embarrassment and rubbed her arm. I'm really sorry, Naruko-chan, she apologized. Sorry doesn't stop the throbbing, Naruko replied with a pout. Mai leaned over and kissed the side of Naruko's face. Does that help? Mai asked teasingly, causing Naruko's face to flush. In response, Naruko quickly warped away, leaving Mai to chuckle. Still the flirt, huh? Yagura commented, amused. Mai shrugged. He's cute for his age. In a few years, he'll be a heartthrob for women everywhere, Mai said, then turned to Yagura. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Kirigakure, Market District. Samui and Yugito had just helped some of the construction workers clear debris in order to open up the streets. Now, they were sitting down, hydrating with water bottles. We've really made a mess, huh? Samui remarked, looking at the site of their work. Yugito nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. I can't believe I had to use Nibi's chakra so much. I need to step up my training when we get back to Kumo, she said, feeling a bit drained. Samui nodded in agreement. Naruko appeared behind them, draping her arm over their shoulders. Hey ladies, she said with a grin, causing the 2 blondes to smile back. Hey, Foxy. Shouldn't you be helping with the reconstruction? Samui teased. I just helped clear the southern section of the market district not too long ago. I can't check up on my friends? Naruko replied cheekily, making Samui blush slightly, while Yugito smiled and rolled her eyes. You're such a baka, always thinking of others but not yourself, Yugito said, grinning as she bumped her hip against Naruko's. I know. So, Samui-chan, how's your back after all this work? Naruko asked. Samui nodded. A bit sore, but nothing I can't handle. Care for a massage? Naruko offered, and Samui immediately agreed. Naruko moved behind Samui and began working on her shoulders, easing the tension. Hey, no fair. Why does she get a massage? Yugito pouted, clearly envious. Because, Yugi-chan, your back can heal quickly, thanks to Nibi, Naruko replied as she continued massaging Samui's back. Yugito huffed, but Nibi's voice inside her head teased her. Also, if you haven't noticed, Samui's body hasn't fully adjusted yet, Naruko added with a playful grin, causing Samui to blush, much to Yugito's growing irritation. Just what are you insinuating? Yugito asked, her tone dangerously close to threatening. Nothing, Naruko said quickly, raising her hands in mock surrender. I just meant that her body hasn't fully adjusted yet. Your chest is just fine, Yugi-chan. Yugito's brow twitched, but she let out a sigh. Fine, but if you ever make fun of me again, she threatened. Naruko chuckled, then stopped massaging Samui, making her glance back at him curiously. Thanks, Naruko. I have a question for you, Samui said. What? You gonna ask me out? Naruko teased, only to receive a playful slap on the shoulder. I'm serious, you silly. By any chance, you're the last of your clan, right? She asked Naruko, who nodded. So that places you under the CRA, where you can have multiple wives, right? Again, the blonde wielder of the ultimate Sharingan pondered this and nodded. Yes, but I'm not just the last Namikaze, she stated, which confused Samui. I'm actually the last of 4 other clans. This made Samui and Yugito's eyes widen. You see, back then, there existed a clan known as the Uzumaki. Like the Namikaze, they were respected for their skills in Fuinjutsu and also possessed a bloodline that gave them a strong life force. They had the ability to suppress a Baiju's chakra, similar to Hashirama, but they used chakra chains. Not only that, but they were also distant relatives of the Senju clan, meaning I'm related to the Senju clan through my mother, who is the great-granddaughter of Mito Uzumaki and Hashirama Senju. She explained, which made their eyes widen, and they knew she was serious from the look on her face. By Kami, that means you're related to 3 of the 4 Kages of Konoha, Yugito said, but then smirked. Man, those people from that village would raise a huge stink if they found out about this. Naruko shrugged at her statement, while Samui pondered on something. You said there was a 4th clan you were related to, Naruko. What other clan, aside from those 3, are you connected to? She asked. Naruko closed her eyes, and when she opened them, her Sharingan glowed with a matured power. I was bound to reveal this sooner or later. These are the eyes that made the Uchiha clan respected and feared. But how? How do you possess the Sharingan? A stunned Yugito asked. Naruko sighed and brushed her hair back. I'll explain that when we get back to Kumo, and just so you know, these eyes weren't transplanted. I've had them since I was 6, but kept them hidden for a good reason. Samui stayed quiet for a while, then smiled. Kairo was right. You are one of the most surprising ninja in the world. Naruko deactivated her eyes and smiled. What can I say? Unpredictability is my forte. Suddenly, a swirl of fire appeared beside her, and when it died down, it revealed none other than Hitomi in her hybrid form. Speaking of which, Hitomi, where have you been? Naruko asked the vixen. Oh, I was out patrolling the forest and found something that might interest you, she said with a toothy grin on her face. Naruko raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what would that be? She turned to the other 2. Sorry, but I'm going to borrow Naruko for a while. See you. With that, they disappeared via flame sunshine, leaving Yugito and Samui confused. They suddenly appeared in the middle of the forest, and Naruko was puzzled as to why she was brought there. Okay, is there any reason why we're in the middle of the forest? She asked. Hitomi walked over to a large tree and slammed her fist into it, causing a man to fall out. The man wore a black cloak with red clouds, had short green hair, yellow eyes, and his body was split in 2, one half white and the other half black. His left side looked normal, while the black side had no visible orifices, with only his eye showing and white dots along the edges. He also wore an Akatsuki ring on his right little finger. It was Zetsu, a spy for the Akatsuki. He was restrained by razor-sharp chains, which pierced through his body in several places. A groan escaped his lips, and Naruko's eyes widened for a second before narrowing. Where did you find him exactly? Naruko asked in a stern tone. Hitomi's grin grew wider. I found this little troublemaker snooping around the outskirts of the construction. He tried to get away, but I grabbed him before he had the chance. I wanted to see how long it would take him to beg for mercy, but eventually, I got bored and restrained him with some chains I created from my metal elements, she explained. I left him hanging here to think about his actions. Zetsu slowly looked up and saw Hitomi's angry expression. He tried to break free from the chains. Why hello, Zetsu. Did you enjoy your little game of hide and seek? Naruko asked. Why yondaime? Zetsu stammered, but Naruko chuckled. Sorry, that's my old man. So, I'm guessing Madara sent you here to find out about his connection to Yagura, right? This question shocked Zetsu, as he didn't expect Naruko to know about someone thought to be dead. Don't look so surprised. I know all about Madara and his group of S-class ninja who want to collect the bijou. I don't have time to interrogate you right now, but trust me, that coward will regret what he has done to me, this country, and my family, Naruko said coldly, activating her eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, a combination of Madara's and Sasuke's EMS. Now, I'll take your ring. Naruko grabbed Zetsu's wrist, channeling lightning chakra into her hand and making a quick slicing motion to sever his right hand. Before Zetsu could react, he was sucked into a swirling vortex and disappeared. Naruko sealed the severed hand into a small scroll and deactivated her eyes. That's one less problem for now. She turned to Hitomi, who had a playful glint in her eyes. Do you have any idea how amazing you look when you're angry? Hitomi said, walking up to Naruko and wrapping her arms around her neck. Naruko tilted Hitomi's chin up, their eyes meeting. At ease, my vixen. You'll get your chance soon enough, Naruko said with a smile, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. Fine, but know this, Naruko-chan, if anyone is going to be the alpha female of your future family or bear your children first, it's going to be me, Hitomi said, poking Naruko gently on the chest with her index finger. So, what about your mother and sister? You do realize that as the new Jubi, your DNA won't match theirs, right? I mean, if they actually want to be with you as mates, it wouldn't be considered inappropriate. You can still use the abilities of the 4 clans you're aligned with though. Naruko pondered this for a moment and sighed. My life just keeps getting more and more complicated. I'm pretty sure I can convince Shinku to go along with it, but Kushina, on the other hand, will be a little more difficult since the only person she's ever been with is To-san, she stated, while Hitomi shrugged. Oh, I think she'll change her mind, especially after she saw what you looked like when you were 18 years old in your timeline, Hitomi said with a grin. Naruko snorted at the comment. I don't think she'd be that simple-minded, Hitomi, Naruko replied, while Hitomi blinked and tilted her head sideways. It has nothing to do with being simple-minded, Naruko-chan. Believe it or not, females, both human, goddess, and even demon, are attracted to beings with strength. You're an alpha among alphas, and being of such status means they'll have strong heirs to help the clan grow once more. So don't be so surprised if they both start gaining feelings for you. Hitomi explained, while Naruko took this in. Wow. I guess I still have a lot to learn about being a true alpha, huh? Naruko asked, looking to Hitomi, who nodded. To be perfectly honest, despite my past life, I never had the chance to actually find a female who'd want to be with me. Aside from you, though your past self passed away during the process when the Jubi's soul was reformed into me and merged with my soul, as well as its abilities. It was mostly because we were at war with that villain and the traitor. Hitomi blinked a few times, tilting her head, about to speak up until they both sensed someone watching them. Shinji-san, it's rude to spy on a fellow ally, Naruko called out, and the devil of the mist appeared, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry. An old habit I picked up when Zabuza and I were members of the Anbu Assassins Division, he apologized, glancing at Hitomi. I never thought I'd meet the most powerful bijou up close without fearing for my life. Last I heard, his old man sealed you inside of him. The vixen shrugged and brushed a bang back. What? Did you expect some bloodthirsty monster hell-bent on destroying villages and devouring people for fun? She asked in a bored tone. Shinji snorted at the statement and shook his head. I may be human, but I'm not short-sighted when it comes to Jinchūriki, or in Naruko's case, a former Jinchūriki. I've seen my fair share of what humans are capable of doing to each other. He answered. Ain't that the truth? The Uchiha clan is one example. They'll do anything to gain power, even if it means betraying their own family. A cursed clan with a cursed bloodline. I can see the perks of having such powerful eyes on your side, but in my opinion, the cost is too great. Anyway, is there something you need? Naruko asked the Zanbato-wielding shinobi. Yeah. It involves my brother, who's currently a missing nin. Even though he's in the bingo book for a failed assassination attempt, with the state our village is in, We'll need him back on our side as soon as possible. I heard from your mother that the current Raikage would like to ally with Kiri once this war is over. Shinji answered. I see. So you want me to try to find your brother once we leave, correct? Naruko asked, and Shinji nodded. I'll see what I can do. Knowing my luck, I'll run into him soon, and at the very least, try to get him to come back to Kiri. Though that'll probably involve a fight between us, Naruko said with a sigh. Now it was Shinji's turn to snort. You think? Zabuza only acknowledges strength, since in our country, we respect strength. How do you think Mei became the leader of the rebellion? Though, if you do fight him, make sure to keep all his limbs intact, because I plan on giving him a good beating once he sets foot back in Kiri, Shinji said with a gleam in his eyes. Naruko's sweat dropped. Wow. With a brother like him, I can see how Zabuza turned out. Then again, Kirabai and E-sensei are the same, since the youngest one likes to rap bad lyrics while the eldest smashes mountains with his bare hands, Naruko thought. Anyhow, we've got the villagers heading back, and we're going to celebrate the end of the war, Shinji said, and Hitomi, and Naruko headed back to the village. For the next few days, the rebels and civilians celebrated the end of the Bloodline War. During the event, the ninja from Kumo, as well as Kushina and her family, were hailed as heroes for their assistance in the war. Mei Terumi was given the position of Godai Mizukage, and Kiri now had the new 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist back. After the celebration, the Water Daimyo visited Kiri and made Kushina and her family honorary members of the Water Country, while also working on an alliance with the Lightning Daimyo. Before they left, the famous members of the group were thanked by the nin who knew of their reputation, and Mei personally thanked Naruko with a passionate kiss, which left Naruko stunned and redder than Hitomi's hair color. During the voyage, Naruko was teased a lot by Kakashi and Rin due to the fact that their little sister had won the heart of Kiri's new cage. Kumagakure no Sato, a few days later. After returning to Kumo, Kirabai warmly greeted his 4 students, giving each of them a big group hug. It was a joyful moment for them all. Soon after, Kushina shared some important news. The rebels had succeeded in their struggle, with their leader Mei becoming the Godai Mizukage. The Water Daimyo also expressed gratitude to Kumo for their support. Yagura, in an act of redemption, planned to become a protector of the Water Country, aiming to atone for his past, even though he had not been responsible for the unfortunate events. He hoped to make amends for not being strong enough to resist Madara's influence. The various daimyos and Kijas were now working on an alliance treaty to help restore Kiri's power. Meanwhile, Naruko was in an interrogation room she had requested with I's permission. She was preparing to deal with Zetsu, whom she had captured in her dimension. As she entered the room, her Sharingan activated, and a swirling ripple appeared, pulling Zetsu, bound by chains and seals, to the ground before her. Hello, Zetsu. I trust you've been comfortable in my dimension over the past few days? Naruko said with a falsely kind tone, though Zetsu glared back at her. Oh, don't be like that. I've been kind enough to let you recover. I could have ended things much sooner, but I didn't. You're lucky, she added. She stepped closer to him. I'm guessing you were sent by Akatsuki to gather information on all the Jinchūriki, right? Zetsu stayed silent. Not going to speak? That's fine, I've already guessed your plan. Naruko knelt down to Zetsu's level, her expression stern. I know all about Akatsuki and your true leader, the one behind the events in Kiri. His name is Madara Uchiha. Zetsu's eyes widened in shock. How do you know about him? He disappeared after his defeat by Hashirama. A smirk crossed Naruko's face. You'd like to know, wouldn't you? I know everything about your organization. Members like Kisame Hoshigaki, Sasori of the Red Sands, Kakuzu the Heart Stealer, and Datara the Explosives Expert. I also know the leader, Nagato, also known as Pain. Zetsu looked increasingly worried. If you know all of this, why capture me? He asked, his voice uneasy. Simple, Naruko replied. You can blend into the land, making you a perfect spy. But I've already stopped you. You're nothing more than an experiment created using DNA stolen from Hashirama Senju by Madara. You're a potential threat, and I can't allow that. She smiled. Besides, now that I have your ring, I have no further use for you. With that, Naruko activated her eyes once more, and the last thing Zetsu saw was a flash of black flames before everything went dark. The next day, Jiraiya arrived at the compound where Naruko and her companions were staying in Kumo. Upon hearing of how Naruko had defeated the Yondaime Mizukage, even when he used the full power of his bijou, Jiraiya was both astounded and deeply proud of how much Naruko had grown. During his stay, Naruko explained to him how she came from a different realm, one that had fallen victim to Madara's plans. She shared how she used a powerful Fuinjutsu to absorb Madara and Sasuke, eventually becoming the new Jubi and gaining their knowledge, powers, and abilities. Jiraiya nearly had a heart attack when he saw Hitomi in her kit form, but Naruko reassured him that she was harmless. Naruko also shared with Jiraiya how she had mastered the Sage Arts in her original timeline, training with the Toads and proving it by demonstrating Sage Mode, although she preferred to keep it a secret, only using it as a last resort. Naruko also expressed her desire to find the other Jinchūriki and warn them about Akatsuki to prevent history from repeating itself. Jiraiya offered to help her, and Naruko gladly accepted. Afterward, Jiraiya left to mobilize his network and track down the Rakubi first. That night, Naruko sat on the rooftop of the compound, Hitomi curled up in her lap. As she gently stroked Hitomi's back, the two of them gazed at the glowing full moon. "Should I feel offended that you're spying on me, Yugao-chan?" Naruko teased. Yugao appeared beside her, slightly embarrassed. "Sorry, Naruko-chan. I didn't mean to intrude, I was just worried about you," she admitted, sitting down next to Naruko and hugging her legs. "You seem like you have a lot on your mind." Naruko smiled softly. "Is it that obvious?" Yugao nodded. "You seem a bit tense. Maybe you should relax a little. You don't have to carry all of this by yourself." Naruko sighed, looking down at her hands. "I know. Anko-chan always said I should stop worrying so much." Yugao gently brushed a strand of hair from Naruko's face. "You don't have to do it alone. Let those who care about you help you. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You make it sound so easy. Back in my past, I couldn't do anything to protect those I cared about. I let them down during the last war. I was the last member of the Shinobi Alliance left." Naruko clenched her fists, and they started to tremble slightly. "I failed my senseis, my parents, and even the only person who ever showed me what it was like to care deeply for someone." At that moment, Yugao wrapped her arm around Naruko and gently pulled her close. "Hey now, don't start blaming yourself like that. What's happened in the past can't be changed, and as much as it hurts, it's behind us now. You've been given a second chance to make things right. Instead of looking back, look ahead." She smiled warmly at Naruko. "Besides, Kushina-sensei will likely give you an earful for brooding so much these past few days." Naruko winced at the thought. There were a few things she feared more than anything: losing those she cared about, and an angry Kushina-sensei were definitely near the top of that list. "You're right," Naruko said with a sigh, her mood lightening. "So, besides checking on me, was there any other reason you wanted to see me, Yugao-chan?" Yugao blinked in confusion, her face turning slightly pink. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to hide her blush. Naruko smirked. "Oh, come on. You're blushing, so you must have wanted to spend some time with me, right?" she teased. Yugao's face turned an even deeper shade of pink, and Naruko could hear Hitomi giggling in her mind. I wasn't thinking that," Yugao stammered, clearly flustered. Naruko chuckled. Sure. Anko did mention something about you wanting to touch my sword, though. I never pegged you as a closet pervert, Yugao-chan." Yugao's eyes widened, and she attempted to strike Naruko on the head, but her fist passed straight through Naruko's form. Flustered and now completely red in the face, Yugao stomped off, muttering under her breath about Anko, blondes, and the embarrassment she just endured. Naruko watched her walk away with a grin. "She makes it too easy, huh, Hitomi-chan?" she asked, looking inward. "You're not wrong," Hitomi replied with a snicker. "If you keep this up, she might just chase you around with a sword, you know." Naruko laughed. "I'm just teasing. Besides, Kakashi Ni-san and Jiraiya Kyofu are way worse than I could ever be." She stroked Hitomi's back gently, causing the vixen to purr in contentment. "At least I'm not as bad as them." The sound of electricity crackling could be heard from behind the Namikaze family's compound, and it was caused by none other than Naruko. She was currently crouched down, her legs slightly spread apart, and was gripping her right arm, with Reikiri fading and leaving behind electric residue. Naruko was wearing a black sleeveless shirt and pants, with a ninjato strapped to her belt, much like how Sasuke had his Kusanagi Chokudo sheathed in Naruto Shippuden. Beads of sweat were dripping from her face. "Hey, Aniki, how many times was that?" Naruko asked Kakashi, her Sharingan activated. The copy ninja, watching from a distance, observed his surrogate younger sister. "That was about 4 times, Naruko. It's the same as me, but with the amount of chakra you have, you can probably use it 2 more times than I can," Kakashi answered. "Earlier, You managed to use the Chidori at least 9 times, which is impressive. Both A and S ranked jutsu require a lot of chakra. No kidding. Not even the Rasengan used that much chakra, considering how compressed the chakra in it is, Naruko replied, thinking for a moment. The only suggestion I can come up with when using them is to lessen the amount of chakra and switch to using them for stunning rather than destructive power. But that would reduce their force and penetration. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. That's very true. I only use them when the situation is dire, and the same goes for the Sharingan in my left eye. But you don't have to worry about the drawbacks like I do. Naruko nodded in agreement. Yes, making variations based on your techniques is really difficult. I remember when I was working on my old man's technique. It was exhausting, it took me almost a month to finish it, and I nearly lost the full use of my right arm when I first used it. Kakashi blinked in astonishment. That's incredible. What kind of technique was it? Naruko grinned. It's called the Rasen Shuriken. It's essentially a Rasengan with a 4-pronged shuriken around the center, combined with my wind element. It creates countless microscopic wind blades that attack on a cellular level. There are so many individual strikes that even the Sharingan can't see them all. It damages nerve channels and attacks the chakra circulatory system, making it impossible to heal with medical ninjutsu. If the damage is severe, it can prevent the target from using jutsu ever again. Kakashi, though his mask hid his expression, was amazed by the sheer scale of the technique. That sounds unreal, Naruko. Naruko laughed. Imagine being hit by that. Countless invisible blades made of wind cutting through your body. It's not something I'd want anyone to experience. Remind me to never get on your bad side, Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his head nervously. Naruko smirked, but her tone lightened. Oh, don't worry. I only use it on my enemies. But I did create a Rasengan version of the Senengoroshi for anyone who's chronically late and acts inappropriately. Kakashi gave her a nervous look and placed a hand over his rear, sweat starting to form. Hey, well, I promised Rin-chan I'd take her out on a lunch date today. See you later. He shunshined out of the area, leaving Naruko blinking in confusion. A lunch date? It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Rin-chan is at the hospital, Naruko muttered, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. She focused on a distant target, electricity sparking to life around her right hand. Chidori Izo, she called out, her hand thrusting forward. The technique extended into a long spear of energy, which pierced the target. Afterward, she retracted her hand, and the energy dissipated. That was about 15 meters long. 5 meters more than Sasuke could do. Still, it doesn't compare to my Kaze no Izo, though. I can use the wind around me to extend it further with less chakra. Just then, Daru and C arrived, both looking at the demolition site with raised eyebrows. By Kami, Naruko, must you always turn your backyard into a battlefield? Daru asked with an amused look, while Naruko simply shrugged. It regenerates thanks to the seals in the area, so I can do whatever I want here, Naruko explained. C muttered, he's worse than Kirabai-sama when he trains in the valley. So, what's up? Naruko asked, noticing they didn't come just to chat. Daru spoke up. Got that right. We've been assigned a mission by the Reikage. It involves a sighting of the vessel for the Rakubi no Namekuji. His name is Utakata, and he was last seen near Nami no Kuni. I see. Does Kiri know? Naruko asked. Yeah. The new Mizukage is sending out teams to find rogue vessels from the past purge and bring them back into the fold. They've already sent out a squad of hunter nin to track another vessel, but they were warned not to approach him yet, as they think he might still be hostile. They sent a scroll asking us to assist them in approaching Utakata, since he appears to have someone with him, Daru explained. Naruko nodded, her expression serious. Sounds like a plan. Let me get my gear together. She shunshined to her compound. Nami no Kuni shores. A squad of 4 Kiri hunter nin was waiting at an empty dock for reinforcements from Kiri. Just then, Kakashi, Daru, C, Shinku, and Naruko arrived in front of them. The squad captain approached them. So, you're the backup the Reikage sent? He asked. Kakashi nodded. That's right. What's the situation with the target? He's still in Nami no Kuni. He has a companion, a blonde-haired female, around the same age as Naruko and Shinku, the leader replied. It looks like she's his student, though we're not sure how skilled she is in ninjutsu. He seems to be intent on protecting her. Naruko rubbed her chin thoughtfully. If he's protecting her, she must either come from a powerful family or possess something valuable. Those would be the most likely reasons, she speculated, and Daru and C nodded in agreement. Shinku added, since Nami is neutral and doesn't have any ninja, it's a good place for them to stay out of sight. The squad leader continued, Utakata is a water affinity user from Kiri. His bubble-based ninjutsu is unique and very versatile. He uses it both offensively and defensively, and it can even be transparent, making it easy to blend in or create barriers. Naruko tilted her head. Bubble-based ninjutsu? That's a first for me. Daru, with his usual laid-back tone, commented, this from someone who uses black lightning techniques. Naruko smirked before focusing again. Where was the last place you saw them? The last we saw, a family near the shores invited them to stay, the hunter nin replied. The problem is getting close to them without causing a confrontation. Kakashi nodded, deep in thought. Our best bet would be to send someone they wouldn't expect to be a ninja after them. You four are out, and so am I, given my past with Konoha. Daru and C wouldn't work either, he'd suspect Kumo might be after him. That was when Shinku spoke up. So, me and Naruko-chan would be the only options. He wouldn't suspect two teenagers being hired to search for him, and no one knows about Naruko defeating the Yondaime Mizukage yet, nor is she in the bingo book. The only issue is our last names, so we should settle for just using our first names. Naruko nodded in agreement but did catch on to when she said Chan in her name. Daru and C also nodded, as did the Kiri ninja. Then it's settled. We'll have Naruko and Shinku approach them first before doing anything else. But if it gets out of hand, we'll have to intervene and use force to talk to Utakata. The leader finalized and looked at Naruko and Shinku. We'll keep our distance by remaining in the secluded areas around the house unless something serious happens. Also, be careful of Utakata's Jinchūriki forms. Even though he doesn't like to rely on them, he is capable of using their full power, just like Yagura was. He warned the two, who nodded and shunshine out of the shore. With Naruko and Shinku. The twins were leaping from tree to tree in the forest while keeping a lookout for Utakata or his female student. As they continued to hop through the forest, Naruko sensed something, as did Shinku, and they both stopped, looking at each other and nodding. They slowly made their way down the tree branches until they were on the ground. You sensed it too? Naruko asked the redhead, who nodded. Okay, now let's take this slowly, she said, and they started to zigzag by the trees while keeping their chakra suppressed. They found themselves heading toward a clearing and stopped behind a large tree. They poked their heads out on each side and saw two figures. The first was a tall, thin, young man with pale golden eyes and dark brown hair that reached the base of his neck. His side partition lets a large portion of his bangs cover the left side of his face. He wore a long, light blue kimono adorned with a small emblem of 3 bubbles on the back below the collar, and an orange sash. He carried a bamboo jug, filled with a soap solution, and a pipe. The other was a full-figured girl with dark green eyes, a widow's peak, and mid-back length dark blonde hair. She wore a light violet and white top, black shorts, a black skirt, black high boots, and light violet wristbands. They were Utakata and Hotari. Is that them? Shinku asked Naruko, who nodded as they watched Hotari perform a water jutsu while the vessel for the 6 tails watched. With Utakata. The former Kiri ninja was watching his student perform a teppodama, water bullet, at the targets he set up and was highly impressed with how far she had gone in improving her water affinity since they first met. He was very pleased with how hard-working she was. As he was watching, a frown formed on his lips. Hotari. That's enough practice for today. Take a break. He called out. She stopped her technique and looked over to see a small smile on his face and nodded happily. Hi, Shishu, she responded, which irked him a little since he really didn't like the title. The bubble user pulled out a pouch full of water and tossed it to her, receiving a thanks from the female blonde. Hotari, I have something to take care of. Stay here for a while until I get back, he instructed. She looked up at him and nodded, knowing that he was probably going to deal with some ninja who were spying on them, and watched him leave the clearing to head into the forest. As he made his way into the forest, he looked around the area, analyzing his surroundings, and afterward, stopped in place. You can come out now, he said in a calm but firm tone, placing his hands on his pipe. Naruko and Shinku walked out from behind a tree and approached Utakata, who slowly narrowed his eyes. They seemed to be the same age as Hotari, yet despite their appearance, they appear to be very strong, not just Chonin level. They were compressing their chakra. If it wasn't for my enhanced senses, I wouldn't have even noticed they were in the area. No need to fight us, Utakata-san. We're not your enemies, Shinku said, and he could tell by the look on Utakata's face that he was very wary of them. Is that right? Why should I believe you two aren't really hunter nin or bounty hunters? He asked in a calm tone while Naruko stepped forward. Because if we were after you, we wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? We certainly wouldn't have waited for you to leave your student behind. If we wanted to, we could have already confronted and captured her, Naruko explained calmly. Utakata had to admit Naruko was right. From the way she carried herself, it was clear that she was the strongest of the group, despite her age. We just want to talk, Utakata. Nothing more, Naruko added. Really? Talk about what exactly? Utakata asked. Naruko was about to respond when she suddenly turned towards the bush behind them. In a swift motion, she threw a kunai at the tree, prompting a figure to leap out from behind it and land in front of them. It was a man with a gaunt face, dark, messy hair, and a distinctive cleft in his chin. He wore a large shuriken on his back. Utakata's eyes widened in recognition. You! He snarled, pulling out his pipe. The man smirked. Yes, it's me. So, where's your little student, Utakata? Did you abandon her like you did your former master? The man taunted. His eyes shifted to an eerie gold. Naruko appeared behind him with a kunai drawn in reverse. The man's eyes widened as he found himself face to face with her cold, piercing blue eyes. Before he could react, Naruko swung the kunai at his head, but the man quickly dodged and pulled out a Fuma shuriken. Who are you, kid? He spat, just as he sensed something beneath him. He leapt away to avoid being caught by a pair of arms that emerged from the ground. A voice spoke from behind him, didn't you know? You're not supposed to let your guard down. The man's eyes widened again. Naruko was behind him once more. Impossible. How can she move that fast? He thought, turning around to swipe at Naruko with his fist. But she stopped it with her palm, twisted her body, and placed her foot on his arm. Using it as a foothold, she vaulted over him, landing an aerial kick that sent the man crashing to the ground. The bandit gritted his teeth in pain, clutching his head. He couldn't finish his sentence before being ensnared by red tendrils. He coughed and turned his head slightly to see Shinku, whose long hair was restraining him. A mischievous smirk appeared on her face, and the man yelped in pain as electricity coursed through her hair. As this was happening, Shinku was unaware of the looming figure above her. She turned just in time to see a massive man about to strike. Naruko appeared instantly, using her hands to stop the attack. She was pushed back slightly but held her ground. Shinku quickly released the jutsu, and the man fell to his knees, panting from the damage. Damn that, the man growled, struggling to rise. Naruko narrowed her eyes, using her Chidori Nagashi technique to send an electric shock through him. He grunted in pain, but before he could recover, she kicked him hard in the torso, sending him sliding across the ground. Shinku, having overheard the man's rude comment, clenched her fist and turned with a look that could rival even Tsunade's. Are you all right? Naruko asked with a sweat drop. Shinku didn't answer. Instead, she took swift action and delivered a powerful punch to the man's jaw. He was sent flying, crashing into a tree, and fell unconscious. Naruko sighed, Shinku-chan, you really need to control your temper. Shinku shot her a playful glare. I'm fine, she said, and Naruko chuckled. The man's form then melted into mud, sinking into the ground. Surprised, Shinku and Naruko looked around, but their attackers had vanished. I don't sense them anywhere nearby, Naruko said, keeping her guard up. Same here, Shinku agreed. Utakata approached them with a thoughtful expression. Let's go back to where my student is. I also expect an explanation from both of you, he said. Of course, but as we mentioned earlier, we're not your enemies, Naruko reassured him. Back at the camp, Hotari, Utakata's student, was resting against a tree. She stood up and ran towards her master when she saw him. Shisho. She called out, looking at Naruko and Shinku with curiosity. Utakata smiled. Don't worry, they're not enemies. Though, I didn't catch your names, he said. I'm Naruko, Naruko introduced herself, while Shinku added, and I'm Shinku. The two girls exchanged glances before Naruko continued. Apologies, but we can't reveal our family names due to some sensitive matters concerning the last war. Utakata nodded thoughtfully. I understand. So, what brings you here? Shinku took a breath before speaking. You know about the bloodline war that occurred in Kiri, right? Utakata nodded gravely. I do. Well, the war recently ended, and the Yondaime Mizukage lost, Shinku continued. The rebel faction won. Kiri now has a new Mizukage, Mei Terumi. It turns out, Yagura, the previous Mizukage, was under a genjutsu for years. He's been freed and has stepped down to become the guardian of Kiri and all of Mizu no Kuni. Utakata stared at them in disbelief. So, the rebel faction won, and Yagura is stepping down as Mizukage? What does the new Mizukage want with me? Naruko nodded. She wants you to return to Kiri. But before you can, there's another issue. A man named Gato is trying to take over Nami no Kuni, using his wealth and hired ninja. He's even employed a former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. Utakata sighed. I'm aware of Gato. He's dangerous, and I've been helping protect Nami no Kuni. Once I deal with him, I'll consider returning to Kiri. Naruko looked determined. Any leads on who the swordsman is? Utakata shook his head. Not yet. But once I deal with Gato and his forces, I'll head back. With that, Utakata turned to his student, and they disappeared in a swirl of bubbles. Naruko and Shinku exchanged a glance. It looks like we'll be staying here longer than expected, Shinku-chan. Let's report back to Aniki with what we've learned, Naruko said. Shinku nodded. Got it. Let's go. With that, they both disappeared in a flash. Kakashi leaned against a tree as he listened to Naruko's explanation about Utakata and his apprentice, who were acting as protectors for a bridge builder named Tazuna and his family. Tazuna was being targeted by Gato, a man trying to take over the Wave Country using his army of thugs and low-ranked missing nin. So, until Gato is dealt with, Utakata won't be returning to Kiri, right? Kakashi asked, his gaze fixed on the blonde ninja. Naruko nodded, letting out a sigh, which Kakashi noticed. Well, this complicates things. The Kiri Onbu are getting anxious about bringing him back. Our best bet is to locate and neutralize the camps where these bandits are hiding, while you and Shinku assist Utakata and his apprentice, he suggested thoughtfully. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, Naruko agreed. Also, from what Utakata told me, Gato hired a former member of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. That's a problem, Naruko continued, a serious expression crossing her face. I can only think of a few candidates who might fit, Raiga Kurotsuchi, Kisame Hoshigaki, or Zabuza Momochi. But since Raiga and Kisame have been off the radar for some time, I'm guessing Zabuza's the one he hired. Kakashi nodded in agreement. The lack of news about Raiga and Kisame matched what they had been hearing, and rumors had circulated about a figure wielding a Zanbato roaming around smaller islands and countries not tied to ninja villages. Naruko knew Zabuza's reputation well. He had fought against him before and knew how formidable he was, especially considering Zabuza was almost on equal footing with Kakashi, even when Kakashi used his Sharingan. Alright, then. I'll inform the others about our new objective. As for you and Shinku, your mission is to find Gato's hideout and deal with him, Kakashi said, his tone serious. Naruko and Shinku nodded, accepting their tasks. Later that day, Gato was fuming. No, he was livid. He had just learned that several of the bandit camps around Nami no Kuni had been wiped out by a group of ninja, and to make matters worse, the group he hired to scout, the so-called Magaki group, had proven useless. Many of their members were injured and needed medical attention. Why is it so hard to find competent help these days? Gato growled, glaring at a figure lounging in the shadows of the room. I expect better from you and your partner. Otherwise, don't expect payment. Before Gato could finish, a massive sword appeared in front of his face, and he immediately shut his mouth, meeting the glare of a pair of intense eyes. Don't lump me in with those amateurs, the gruff voice said. Just make sure you have my money ready. Got it? Gato nodded hastily, and the sword withdrew into the shadows. Meanwhile, Naruko and Shinku were on a boat surrounded by the defeated bodies of several bandits. One bandit, trembling in fear, was pressed against the wall. Please don't hurt me. I'm just a hired hand, he begged as he looked into Naruko's cold eyes. Tell us where Gato's hideout is, and you might just walk away, Naruko said sternly, her voice calm but full of authority. Lie to us, and you'll regret it. Shinku swung her sword to the side, effortlessly cutting through a barrel without even looking. The sound of the blade striking the wood sent a shiver down the bandit's spine. Okay. I'll talk. The bandit quickly confessed, but before he could give any details, his body jerked violently, collapsing onto the floor in a heap. Naruko knelt by the body, inspecting it closely. Senbone. So they've arrived, she murmured. Shinku looked confused for a moment until a thick fog rolled over the boat. I sense a powerful chakra nearby, Shinku said, her grip on her sword tightening. One is as strong as Kakashi-sensei's. The other one. Still powerful, but not as much. I was wondering when you'd show up, Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist, Naruko called out, her voice carrying through the fog. A deep chuckle echoed around them before a figure emerged from the mist, standing on the far side of the boat. Zabuza, a tall and muscular man, stood there with his signature bandages covering his lower face and his Kiri forehead protector tilted to the side. He was wearing his usual black outfit, and a massive Zanbatsu was strapped to his back. "So this is Zabuza Momochi," Shinku remarked, observing the swordsman closely. "Yeah. He looks just like his brother," Naruko agreed. Zabuza smirked, his sharp eyes focused on the siblings. "A ninja's gotta eat. I didn't expect a couple of kids to cause so much trouble, though. You're either really strong for your age or just lucky." "I'll take that as a compliment," Naruko said with a grin. "But let me ask you something. Did you know that the vessel for the Rakubi, Utakata, is protecting Tazuna and his family from Gato? Ever heard of him?" Naruko asked, her tone casual but serious. Zabuza's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. "You're serious?" he asked, clearly surprised. Naruko's eyes gleamed with confidence. "Even if you manage to defeat us, which I highly doubt, you'll still have to deal with Utakata and the Kirionbu. Gato only has a small army of bandits. Nothing impressive for a skilled ninja. And the only ninja he has are those second-rate mercenaries. You and the one with the scent of ice and medical herbs." Zabuza blinked in surprise, not because of Naruko's words, but because she had figured out that he wasn't alone. "What are you talking about?" He bluffed, though it was clear he was caught off guard. "The nose knows, Zabuza," Naruko replied with a smirk. "She's close by. We can sense her chakra, and it's ice-based. That means she's likely a bloodline holder." Before Zabuza could respond, Shinku vanished, and the sounds of clashing blades echoed in the distance. Zabuza cursed under his breath, realizing that his companion, Haku, had been caught. Haku, the disguised hunter Nin, appeared, engaged in a fierce struggle with Shinku, who wielded a kunai in one hand while defending herself. Zabuza's eyes narrowed. "These kids. They're more capable than they seem," he muttered under his breath. Haku struggled to hold her ground against Shinku. "You surprised me earlier," she said, her voice steady. "But now, you're at a disadvantage." Shinku raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really?" she replied, intrigued. "Yes. For one thing, you can't use ninjutsu without seals, and two, we're surrounded by water," Haku said confidently, forming a series of one-handed seals. From the bay, water rose and shaped itself into floating water needles. "Senshatsu Suishu, 1,000 flying water needles of death," Haku announced, stomping her foot and sending the water needles flying towards Shinku, enveloping her in an explosion of water. Haku smirked, her victory seemingly assured. "It's over." "No, it's not," a voice whispered into the masked kunoichi's ears, causing Haku's eyes to widen under her mask. She spun around and attempted to backhand the redhead, but Shinku caught it in her hand and gripped it tightly. Haku doubled over in pain as Shinku drove her knee into the girl's stomach, causing her to cough under her mask. Shinku then pulled back and grabbed Haku by the collar of her shirt, spun around, and judo flipped her over her shoulder. Haku flew and crashed hard onto the wooden floor of the ship. Zabuza was surprised by what he had just witnessed. Unbelievable, Haku not only lost in speed to that girl, but her strength is even greater. "I'll admit, Haku-san, you're fast, but I'm faster," Shinku said while Haku struggled to get back on her feet. "How? I didn't even see you move, and you were surrounded with no escape," Haku wondered aloud, holding her side in pain from the knee strike and knowing some of her ribs were bruised. Shinku smiled. "It was during the time you were talking about how you had me at a disadvantage. While you were creating your jutsu, I was creating mine as well. After I created the water clone, I instantly substituted myself with it." Naruko smirked. "Her speed's definitely improved a lot, but then again, we come from a family of speedsters, right, Dad?" Zabuza wasn't pleased with the turn of events. He knew Haku was strong, but the redhead was on an entirely different level. He eyed the blonde for a few seconds and frowned. "This is not good. Unless Haku uses her bloodline, she won't stand a chance against that girl." He slowly reached for his weapon pouch but suddenly felt the sharp edge of a kunai pressed against his throat. "Don't even think about it," Naruko challenged. "Let the girl settle this while we figure out who the true demon is." Zabuza smirked beneath his mask. "Gladly." With that, he dispersed into water. Naruko instantly ducked as Kubi Kiribocho bypassed her head, drawing a kunai from her sleeve. She spun around, thrusting her weapon into the area where Zabuza's kidney would be. Both of them stood still. Naruko glanced down and noticed water flowing from the injury, frowning. Another clone? Naruko muttered, feeling a bit offended. The clone dispersed into water like the last one, and the mist thickened even more. You've piqued my interest, Naruko. You and the girl are on a whole different level, ninja-wise. Let's see just how good you really are. Naruko remained calm, her eyes scanning the fog. So you're going to use the Muon Setsujin Jutsu, silent killing technique? I figured as much, since it's your specialty, killing your target before they even realize what's happening. Especially since you know that striking any of the 8 vital areas of the human body means instant incapacitation. Zabuza chuckled again in the thick fog while Naruko slowly slid into a stance. So you know my methods? I'm honored. Normally, children your age don't understand the true aspects of being a ninja, but you're different. Judging from the look in your eyes, you're not a rookie. You've seen things most people could never imagine. Zabuza's voice grew colder. You don't have the eyes of a beginner, you have the eyes of someone who's been through battles, seen the worst, and fought enemies stronger than themselves. Your eyes tell your whole history to me. And what do they tell you? Naruko asked calmly. Pain, suffering, anger, rage, regret, sorrow, and resolve, Zabuza replied. You've had to fight for everything you have, and you've gained strength through hardship. You've been forced to harden your heart in situations that would break others, all to preserve whatever innocence you have left. You, Naruko, are the epitome of a true ninja. Naruko couldn't help but smirk, closing her eyes for a brief second. That makes 2 of us, Zabuza Momochi. Tell me, how much does that girl mean to you? She asked in the mist, only to hear silence. You know what? Don't answer that, because I already know the answer. Her eyes opened again, cold as ice, completely devoid of emotion. The time for talking is over. Let's go. With that, she vanished into the mist, and clang. Zabuza grunted as Naruko's kunai slammed into the flat side of his blade, but she held her ground. He grinned, seeing the intense focus in her eyes. She was determined, and from the looks of it, she wasn't going to stop until she'd settled things. Meanwhile, Haku was hopping backward as a volley of kunai hit the spots where she had just been, deflecting several more with a senbon. She threw several of her own at Shinku. The redhead dashed to the left and kept running after Haku. Damn it, she's too fast and too strong for me. I need a way to slow her down, Haku thought, evading several slashes from Shinku and ducking from the 8th one. Haku tried to sweep kick Shinku off her feet, but the redhead flipped backward and landed a few feet away. What's the matter? Having second thoughts about facing me? Shinku asked. Not at all. I was just figuring out how to cut your speed in half. And now I have, Haku said, a determined look on her face. Is that so? Well, I can't let you gain an advantage over me. Shinku darted forward, but stumbled slightly. What the? She looked down and saw sheets of ice creeping up her ankles. You were so focused on trying to outmatch me that you didn't notice the trail of water we left behind. The jutsu I used is Kori no Enman, creeping ice, which ensnares the feet of my opponent in a casing of ice, reducing their speed, Haku explained. Shinku frowned. You know this won't hold me for long, right? Shinku raised an eyebrow. I'm aware of that. It's only meant to slow you down, but it should buy me enough time to turn the tide of this battle in my favor. Shinku grunted as she tugged at the ice, scowling. She then clapped her hands together and formed a tiger seal. Katen, Kanetsu Suru, fire release, heat up. Her skin began to glow slightly, and steam started rising from her body. The ice around her feet slowly melted away. This jutsu allows me to convert my chakra into heat, increasing my body temperature to survive harsh environments. With enough chakra, I can even melt ice. Once the ice was fully melted, Shinku shook off the remaining water and tapped her foot on the ground. Haijutsu, Mikyu Hyoshu, secret technique, demonic ice mirrors, Haku chanted, forming an unusual hand seal. Shinku could feel a massive chakra spike in the area as 21 ice mirrors appeared, forming a dome around Haku, each mirror reflecting her image. This is my ultimate technique, Kunoichi-san. As you can see, there's no escape or way to counter it. Your speed won't help you here. Shinku took in her surroundings, her frown deepening. She's right. In this dome of mirrors, my speed is reduced, and worst of all, I have no idea which mirror she's actually attacking from. Her senses were heightened to the max, and she leapt to the left, hissing when a blur barely nicked her cheek. Even though my reflections are confusing, I still have my natural reflexes and sixth sense, Haku declared, some blood dripping from the cut on her cheek. That may be, but how long can you keep evading my attacks? Haku said. Sooner or later, you'll have to strike. Longer than you can maintain this jutsu. A technique of this magnitude will deplete your chakra reserves eventually, Shinku remarked. Haku stayed silent, knowing the redhead was correct. That's why I'll have to finish this quickly, she replied, and Shinku scoffed. In your dreams, Naruko said, performing a series of hand seals and stopping at the snake. The ponytail in her hair snapped, freeing her hair from its restraint, and it spread out before wrapping around her body, hardening with a sheen. A barrage of senbone hit her from all directions. When the attack ended, her hair spiked up and sharpened into needle points. Ninpa, Hari Rendan, ninja art, needle barrage. Shinku fired a barrage of red hair needles at the ice mirrors, but they bounced off without even penetrating a single one. It's impossible for you to pierce my ice mirrors, as they are stronger than steel. Most fire jutsu won't even melt them, Haku informed the redhead, who cancelled her jutsu. I see. So, my only option is to find the real you, Shinku said, pulling off her headband and tying it around her eyes. She then drew her katana from its sheath and took a stance, with her blade poised in a thrusting position and her left foot slightly apart from her right. My eyesight won't help me in this situation, so I'll have to rely on my hearing and chakra sonar. Haku, on the other hand, wondered what Shinku was doing by cutting off her eyesight but shook the thought out and dashed at her from behind. Shinku's ears perked up as she heard the sound of clothes fluttering. As Haku came close, Shinku spun to the left and swung out, nicking Haku in the leg while Haku landed in one of the mirrors in the upper left corner. Meanwhile, in the fog, the sounds of blades clashing and metal bouncing off metal echoed through the mist. Naruko appeared and skidded backward a little before stopping in her tracks, katana drawn. Zabuza appeared on the left with his blade raised over his head and swung it horizontally at Naruko's side. The blonde blocked it with the flat end of her blade, but due to the size and weight of Zabuza's sword, she was pushed back by the impact. Naruko pivoted her foot and used her weight to leap over the blade into the air. Fool! Zabuza spun around and swung his blade as Naruko descended. The blonde spun rapidly as she descended toward her foe, bringing her blade down in a stabbing position and planting it into the ground. Just when Zabuza was about to cut Naruko, he felt himself stop and his arm jerk back. He looked to see Naruko's katana had stopped his blade by sending it through the circular opening. Naruko spun on the cap of the sword and delivered a swift kick to Zabuza's sternum. Zabuza stumbled backward from the impact, clutching his chest and losing his weapon. Naruko landed back on the ground and flung the blade far from Zabuza's reach with her katana. After sheathing her blade, Naruko clapped her hands together and released a gust of wind around the area, clearing out the mist completely. Your little fog won't help you anymore, Zabuza. Now, you must face me directly, Naruko said, confidently. Zabuza stared at her for a while before chuckling. So you want to face me up close and personal, huh? Alright then, kid, you'll get your wish, he announced, cracking his knuckles for emphasis. It's been a while since I've had to fight someone with my fists. Hopefully, my taijutsu hasn't gotten rusty from slaying weaklings. Naruko smirked and got into the Goken, strong fist, stance. Don't let my size fool you, Zabuza. You may be bigger than me, but I've taken down people twice your size. And just a warning, don't blink. Unfortunately, Zabuza didn't listen. When he blinked, Naruko vanished from her position, and pain erupted from his jaw as she struck him. He skidded back a few feet. Ugh, he cried out, his head snapping back as he was thrown off balance. I told you not to blink, Naruko said from behind him. Zabuza widened his eyes at the display of speed. So fast, he thought, and attempted to deliver a reversal backhand at Naruko. But she ducked under his swing, reared her fist back, and slammed it into Zabuza's torso. The runaway Kiri ninja turned into water, and Zabuza appeared behind Naruko, his fist reared back. You should take your own advice, kid. Zabuza struck Naruko across the jaw, sending her flying. He had a gleeful smile on his face as he saw Naruko crash, but it quickly turned to shock as Naruko dispersed into smoke. What the, gah? Zabuza's eyes widened as Naruko delivered a bone-crushing punch to his gut. I always take my own advice to heart, Zabuza. I told you to take me seriously, or you would regret it, she said, leaping back into her battle stance. Zabuza coughed, shaking the dizziness from his head, before glaring at her in anger. You're good, kid. I'll give you that much, he said. But I wonder if your partner will be able to take on Haku and her ice-based Kekkei Genkai. If anything, she'll have difficulty beating her in her element. Naruko chuckled. Then you don't know Shinku well. Kekkei Genkai or not, she's no pushover. She'll take care of your accomplice without breaking a sweat. Dash. Meanwhile, Haku was panting heavily, not just from chakra exhaustion, but also because her mask was cracked and there were rips and tears on her body. Shinku, however, stood in her stance, the blindfold still over her eyes. Her jacket and pants had a few tears, but she wasn't as injured as her opponent. You should give up, Haku-san. I can tell your chakra levels are greatly depleting from keeping this technique active, and the injuries I've given you don't help either, Shinku insisted. I cannot, not until I have helped Zabuza fulfill his desire to free Kirigakure and end the bloodline genocide that has taken place, Haku responded. Shinku raised an eyebrow, confused. What are you talking about? The bloodline war is over, she said, before vanishing in a blur of speed. Before Haku could react, she felt a hand grab her by the collar of her shirt, pull her out of the mirror, and slam her back onto the ground, causing her to cough in pain and freeze when she felt the tip of Shinku's katana near her throat. Don't move, Shinku warned in a calm yet firm tone. Haku sighed in defeat and raised her hands, canceling her jutsu and surrendering. Dash. Zabuza, on the other hand, was not happy. He had bruises and cuts across his body, and from the looks of it, he had gone through a rough battle. Damn that kid. He snarled, pulling a kunai from his shoulder and grunting in pain before tossing it aside. Naruko started going through a series of hand seals, forming the tiger seal. Kaden, Fushicho no Hono, fire release, phoenix flames. She unleashed a flame that took on the shape of a phoenix, screeching as it descended upon the demon of the mist. Suten, Suijin no Heki, water release, water wall, Zabuza responded, clapping his hands together, resulting in water rising from the ocean and forming a wall between the sides of the bridge. When the techniques collided, steam spread around the bridge. Zabuza looked around for any sign of Naruko making an attack, until he heard shuriken whizzing through the steamy mist. He hopped back several times to avoid the shuriken, which embedded into the spots where he had just been. That was when 4 clones appeared on all 4 sides of Zabuza, hands in the hair seal. Raiten, Inazuma Kiji, lightning release, lightning cage. Arcs of lightning chakra shot around the clones in a square pattern, forming a cage made of lightning around Zabuza. Shit. Zabuza cursed, as Naruko walked up to the cage, her hands in her pockets. I would advise you not to try to escape, Zabuza-san. The cage is reinforced by my Raiten Cage Bunshine, lightning release shadow clones, and the lightning responds to your chakra signature. You'll be in for a shock, Naruko warned him. Zabuza growled in frustration. Give up. Your partner has fallen, and you have no way of escaping. Zabuza's eyes widened at the information, and he closed his eyes in frustration. Not only had he lost his sword, but he also sensed that Haku's chakra had greatly depleted. He sighed in defeat. Fine, kid. You win. It's not like I could continue with my injuries, he muttered. Naruko studied him for a moment before nodding. The lightning cage dissipated, and the clones vanished. Zabuza fell to one knee, panting to regain his strength. Shinku was walking toward Naruko and Zabuza with Haku bound in chakra-compressing cuffs, her mask off, looking depressed that she had failed her master. You all right? Naruko asked her. Yeah, just a few scratches here and there, but nothing too serious, Shinku answered. Naruko then turned her attention back to Zabuza. So, what now? Are you going to hurt us and collect my bounty? The demon asked. Zabuza, if I really wanted to kill you, we wouldn't be talking right now, Naruko replied. Taking your life isn't part of my mission. Our real target is Gato, who is controlling the trade routes around Wave and parts of the water country. We were hired to eliminate him and are on a joint mission with some Kiri Anbu, as well as to search for you. Zabuza growled in anger as he heard this. So that scoundrel Yagura finally sent his dogs after me, huh? Naruko shook her head. Not quite. We're not working for him. Yagura is not the Mizukage, Naruko answered, giving Zabuza a look that seemed to ask him to explain. I guess you never got the news. The rebel faction in Kiri won the civil war, and made Terumi as the godime Mizukage. Zabuza's eyes widened in disbelief. What? Mei's the new Mizukage? His expression returned to normal as he chuckled. Why am I not surprised? She was, after all, the leader of the faction and was the strongest member we had without using her bloodline. But from what I last heard, I thought she died in that failed naval assault. He pondered. That's why she is Anbu searching for you in Utakata-san. She's sending a recall notice to all Kiri missing nin to return and help rebuild their forces. Yagura was freed from a genjutsu that had been placed on him by an unknown factor, and now he is the guardian of the water country. Again, Zabuza looked stunned. And how would you know all of this, Gaki? He questioned. Naruko simply smiled, pulling her hand from her pocket and brushing her hair back. I was there, assisting in the civil war, and I fought and defeated him. Now Zabuza and Haku were wide-eyed. What? No way, he shouted, unable to believe that someone so young, like Naruko and her companion, could be powerful enough to defeat Yagura. Is it really that surprising? Naruko asked, her voice light with a hint of humor. Yes, it is. How did a kid like you defeat a Kage/Jinchūriki of the Sanbi? The force of his words made the birds in the area flee. Then, Zabuza was hit with a quick tap to the head by an irritated Shinku. Baka! Are you trying to attract every bandit around? Keep your voice down, Dada Bane, she scolded, then quickly covered her mouth, embarrassed by the verbal tic she had inherited from their mother. Naruko looked at her blankly for a moment before laughing, causing Zabuza and Haku to sweat drop. Shinku, however, glared at her sibling with a visible vein on her forehead. Kami, Shinku-chan, I thought you had gotten over that verbal tic when we were kids, Naruko teased and caught her fist in her hand, smiling warmly. Shut up. It's Ka-san's fault that I got this annoying verbal tic, Shinku grumbled, pulling her fist back but then quickly finding her other hand caught by Naruko. Not to mention her temper and strong reactions, Naruko added, catching her second fist. I hate you, Shinku muttered, pulling her hands free and turning away. Not that I enjoy sibling disputes, but would it be possible for me to get treated for my injuries? Zabuza asked, glancing between the two. Sure, but in return, you'll have to tell us where that little weasel is hiding, Naruko offered with a raised eyebrow, and Zabuza nodded in agreement. Gladly. I didn't like that little midget anyway. Not too far from here, Gato's mansion is located on an island full of ruins. I saw a building with a spiral symbol that matches the ones on your headbands, he said, causing their eyes to widen. That team built his mansion on the grounds of my ancestors? I'm going to destroy him, Naruko growled in her mind, unaware that she was unintentionally releasing a powerful aura of frustration. Haku shivered from the intensity, and Zabuza sweated nervously. Dear Kami, what murderous intent. Whatever Gato did to upset the kid must have been serious. Now I can understand why Yagura lost to her. Her chakra signature is practically cage level. Zabuza thought as he felt the power emanating from Naruko before she calmed herself. After that brief scene, Shinku went ahead and healed Zabuza and Haku, focusing mostly on Zabuza, considering how much Naruko had already done to him. Zabuza then escorted them to the island where Gato's lair was located. During their travel, Naruko noticed some ruins, with a spiral symbol carved into them, now overgrown with moss and deteriorating. Shinku noticed it too and wondered if this island had once been her mother's home before it was destroyed during the war. Zabuza stopped on a large tree branch, and Haku followed suit. So this is the mansion, huh? Naruko asked as she gazed at the structure, getting a nod from Zabuza. Yep, this is it. I can't believe that little midget wasted money on something this big, Zabuza said, his tone filled with disbelief. Maybe he's compensating for something he lacks downstairs, Shinku commented with a grin, causing Haku to stifle a giggle while Zabuza snorted in amusement. Nice one, Shinku-chan. Looks like those lessons with Anko-chan are paying off, Naruko said, giving her a thumbs up, which Shinku returned before getting serious. Joking aside, how's the security here? Shoddy, Zabuza responded. Aside from that gang of ninjas who aren't even a real threat, the worst they have are some bandits and low-level bounty hunters. Breaking in will be easy. He paused for a moment, then smacked himself on the forehead. Why didn't I think of doing that earlier? It would have saved me so much time. And getting my butt kicked. I wonder who trained these kids? So, we just have to deal with a few second-rate bandits? This will be like stealing Iniki's special books when he's not looking, Shinku declared, earning a sweat drop from Naruko. She's been stealing Kakashi's Icha books? I always wondered why she spent so much time in the restroom. I thought it was her time of month, Naruko mused, but then shook the thought away. All right then, time to deal with these pests. The others nodded in agreement, descending toward the mansion with the intention of confronting Gato and everything he had built. What do you mean my mansion is being attacked by Zabuza? Gato exclaimed from his desk, glaring furiously at one of his bodyguards, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. It's not just him, sir. There's also his partner, along with two individuals who appear to be skilled ninjas. They've already dismantled the security outside the mansion and are now making their way inside. We're being overwhelmed. The guard stammered, just as an explosion shook the room, causing the ground to tremble and the sounds of distant cries to echo through the air. Gato clenched his teeth in anger and panic, slamming his fists onto the desk. "Damn them! Damn that woman," he shouted, his voice trembling with rage. "Get out there and delay those intruders. If you succeed, you'll be greatly rewarded." The guard hurried toward the door, attempting to carry out his orders. "I told you this would happen," a calm voice from the shadows remarked. Gato shot a glare in the direction of the voice. "Silence, Aoi. Get down there and handle the situation. I'll triple your pay if you succeed," Aoi chuckled softly before disappearing into the shadows. Meanwhile, a bandit cried out in pain as Zabuza swung his massive cleaver blade, effortlessly cutting through the air. Haku, with swift precision, froze several of the mercenaries in place, leaving them trapped in blocks of ice with expressions of fear frozen on their faces. "Wow, Zabuza, when you said the security here was lacking, you weren't exaggerating," Shinku remarked, standing triumphantly on top of two bandits, her heels pressing lightly into their spines. "Who hires a bunch of bandits to guard a mansion, anyway?" "The cheap kind," Naruto responded casually, effortlessly backhanding a charging bandit into a nearby wall without even looking. Despite his wealth, Gato is notorious for cutting corners when it comes to security. Hiring bandits is his way of getting cheap labor. Haku opened her mouth to respond, but suddenly leapt to the side, narrowly avoiding a volley of senbon that flew from the shadows. She quickly retaliated by throwing her own projectiles. A figure materialized, dodging her attack, and landed in front of them, smirking confidently. "Aoi Rokusho," Zabuza mused, raising an eyebrow. "What's someone like you, the thief of the Raijin no Ken, sword of the Thunder God, doing here?" "Here to defeat all of you," Aoi declared with a grin. Zabuza glanced over at Naruto, Shinku, and Haku, his expression unimpressed. "Are you serious?" Zabuza asked with a raised eyebrow, only to receive a shrug from Naruto. "Doesn't seem like he's joking," Naruto replied, his tone nonchalant. A tick mark appeared on Aoi's forehead, and he glared at the group in anger. "You dare mock me? I can take you all down without breaking a sweat," he declared. Zabuza chuckled darkly. "Please, the only reason you're even in the bingo book is because you stole the weapon of the second Hokage. You're nothing special." "So, we're facing a has-been who joined some obscure village?" Naruto remarked with a bored sigh. "I'm really not impressed." Aoi gritted his teeth and raised his weapon. "I'll show you who's the real loser," he yelled, drawing the legendary sword, the blade crackling with lightning. "With this, I am unstoppable." Naruto simply yawned, unaffected by Aoi's display. "Shinku-chan, do you want this one?" Naruto asked, glancing over at her. She shook her head. "No way. You can deal with him," Shinku replied. "I wouldn't even waste a kunai or shuriken on someone like him." Aoi's rage boiled over, and he charged at them, swinging his blade with a vicious roar. "I'll take you down, brats." But as his blade swung downward, it sliced through nothing but air. Naruto had disappeared, and a voice came from above him. "Your eyes are a little slow," the voice commented. Aoi's eyes widened as he looked up to see Naruto crouching on his shoulders, a ninjato in hand, poised to strike. Aoi froze in shock, unable to comprehend how Naruto had moved so fast. With a casual flick of her wrist, Naruto brought her blade down, the tip of it piercing through Aoi's skull with precise accuracy. Aoi's body fell to the ground with a thud, his form lifeless, as a pool of blood began to spread across the floor. Naruto calmly wiped the blood off her blade, sheathed it, and then pulled out a storage scroll. She severed Aoi's head and sealed it, along with his weapon, before stowing them both away. "Shall we continue?" Naruto said, turning toward the larger doors leading to Gato's office. Zabuza and Haku exchanged glances, both sweat drops appearing on the back of their heads. Zabuza sighed. "Naruto, were you able to track his movements?" Haku asked. "Not at all," Zabuza replied. "If he'd fought me with that speed, I'd be finished already. That was some insane speed." Naruto simply shrugged. "I wasn't even trying. Let's move on." Inside Gato's office, the man was frantically stuffing documents into his bag, trying to prepare for an escape. "Damn it. I need to get out of here," he muttered as he packed his belongings, making sure to take everything important with him. Suddenly, the room shook again with another explosion. Gato gasped in shock as the doors to his room were sent flying past him, crashing into the walls with a loud impact. His heart raced and a look of pure terror spread across his face as he slowly turned to see Naruko entering the room, her hands casually tucked into her pockets. But it wasn't her casual stance that terrified him, it was the coldness in her eyes that radiated a chilling intensity. The weight of her gaze made him break into a cold sweat, his entire body trembling in fear. What do you want?" he stammered, his voice laced with fear as Naruko slowly approached, her eyes locked on him, unwavering. "Your life," Naruko replied calmly, her voice steady but carrying an unspoken threat that made Gato's face lose all color. "And my life? But I haven't wronged you," he protested, only to be hit with an overwhelming aura of rage from Naruko, causing him to panic. Behind them, Haku, Zabuza, and Shinku watched, wondering what had ignited such fury in Naruko. "Do you dare claim you've done no wrong?" Naruko's voice was ice cold. "You sought to take over a nation for your own selfish desires." She stepped forward and placed her foot on Gato's knee, the sickening sound of cracking bone filling the room as Gato screamed in pain. "But that's not the only reason I'm upset. The real reason I despise you is because you built your mansion on the land of my ancestors, defiling it with your greed and your lowly actions." With that, she pressed harder, snapping his other knee with a swift movement, leaving him howling in agony. Shinku watched with wide eyes, realizing the significance of what Naruko was saying. She gasped as she recognized the ancient symbols on the ruins nearby, symbols that were similar to the ones on the headbands she and Naruko wore. "This island is the home of our clan," Shinku whispered to herself. Zabuza, hearing this, turned to her in surprise. "You're both from the Uzumaki clan?" he asked, his voice tinged with realization. Shinku nodded, and Zabuza slapped his forehead in frustration for not connecting the dots sooner. Haku, however, was still confused. "Zabuza-sama, who are the Uzumaki?" she asked. Zabuza sighed and rubbed the back of his head, thinking for a moment before responding. The Uzumaki clan was an ancient and powerful clan. They were renowned for their mastery of Fuinjutsu, seal techniques, and were feared by both their allies and enemies. With their immense chakra, stamina, and longevity, they were unstoppable warriors. It didn't matter how many times they were struck, they just kept fighting until their opponents were defeated. They were also distant relatives of the legendary Senju clan. Gato trembled in terror as he met Naruko's unblinking gaze, knowing that she was the one to decide his fate. Please, don't harm me. I'll give you anything, money, land, even whatever you want," he begged, his voice pleading. Naruko remained silent, instead reaching out and grabbing him by the collar. She activated her Sharingan, and Gato's eyes glazed over in a trance. "Give me the account numbers to your bank, the deeds to your land, and your shipping company," she ordered, her voice carrying an undeniable authority. Gato nodded, immediately complying. After he provided the information, Naruko took what was hers, gold, gems, and scrolls with a spiral symbol that she suspected were valuable, and perhaps dangerous, to her clan's enemies. She sealed the items into separate storage scrolls and knocked Gato out with a swift blow to the jaw, sending him unconscious. Turning to Zabuza, Naruko tossed him one of the scrolls. "This is the payment he owed you for completing your mission," she explained. Zabuza caught it, though he was still uncertain about its contents. Naruko strapped the large scroll behind her and motioned for everyone to follow as they left the mansion. Once far enough from the estate, Naruko performed a few hand seals and released a massive fireball, sending it toward the mansion. The fireball grew to the size of an elephant, erupting into a brilliant explosion as it collided with the structure and nearby camps. On their way back to the borrowed boat, Naruko stared out at the islands where her clan once thrived. She sighed, speaking softly to herself. "One day, I will return and restore the Uzumaki clan to its former glory." As they returned to Nami no Kuni, they arrived at Tazuna's house, where they found Kakashi sitting atop a group of tied-up ninjas, who were glaring at him. One of them seemed to have been defeated in battle, with Utakata standing nearby, casually blowing bubbles from his pipe. Hotari stood beside him, watching the scene with an air of calm. Shinku recognized a few of the ninjas and narrowed her eyes. "Hey, Naruko, those are the ones who tried to ambush us when we first met Utakata-san and Hotari-chan," she said, pointing to the group. She glared at one particularly lanky figure. "And if I remember correctly, the one under that transvestite called me a bitch." A dark aura surrounded her as she cracked her knuckles, her anger evident. The air grew heavy, as if the very atmosphere was warning the unfortunate ninjas to be careful. The individual who had been insulted as a transvestite took great offense. "Who are you calling that?" she snapped, only to freeze up as she saw Shinku's hair rise and her eyes glow a deep red. Chushin's face paled as Shinku began to approach them, drawing her katana with deliberate slowness. "Benton, you fool. She's going to," Chushin began, his voice filled with dread, causing the others to tremble as Shinku advanced. However, before she could do anything, Kakashi appeared behind her, placing a calming hand on her shoulder and the hilt of her katana. Now, Shinku-chan, we can't harm the prisoners just yet, Kakashi reasoned gently with the teenage redhead, who still glared at the group. He's right, sis, Naruko spoke up, her voice taking a serious tone. First, we need to extract any information they might have. The group sighed in relief, believing their lives would be spared. Once that's done, then you can decide what to do with them, whether to try some of your more intense jutsu, or leave them in the forest to face nature's course, she added with a smirk, clearly not minding the harsh measures Shinku would take. Shinku's eyes brightened with excitement at the prospect, while the other ninja appeared horrified by the suggestion. Kakashi, on the other hand, sighed deeply, his thoughts briefly turning to Naruko's unusual sense of humor. She's even more ruthless than her mother and Anko, he thought with a sheepish grin as he rubbed the back of his head. His gaze shifted to Zabuza and Haku, who were observing the scene. Greetings, Demon of the Mist, Kakashi greeted with a nod. Zabuza raised an eyebrow at the sight of Kakashi, clearly surprised. Copy Ninja Kakashi. Didn't expect to find you here, and with Kumo ninjas no less. I thought you were still a Konoha shinobi. Kakashi chuckled and shrugged. I was, but certain circumstances led me to leave in order to protect a few people. Now, along with a few others, I work as a mercenary for hire. It was then that 4 Kiri Hunter Nin appeared before the group. So, I take it you 4 are the ones Mei sent to find me? Zabuza asked. The leader of the group nodded. Correct, Zabuza-san. Not only is Mei offering you a full pardon, but she's also willing to reinstate your name within the ranks, the captain explained. And what about my companion? Will she be able to join Kiri as well? Zabuza inquired. The masked shinobi paused to consider the question before responding. While it's not entirely my decision, since we need all the strength we can get, it is possible that your partner could also join the ranks, the captain said, turning his gaze to Utakata. The same offer stands for you, Utakata-san, and your apprentice, if she wishes to find asylum in Kiri. Utakata looked toward his apprentice, Hotari, before nodding. It would be the wisest decision. I don't wish to remain on the run, constantly putting my student in danger, he said. Hotari beamed with excitement at being acknowledged as his student. What should we do about them? Amoe asked, pointing toward the group of bound enemies. Leave them to me, Shinku responded with a grin that promised no mercy. They'll make excellent practice for my jutsu. The captives went pale, clearly terrified of what was to come. Shinku cracked her knuckles with a delighted smile that made the others uneasy. And people say I'm the terrifying one, Zabuza muttered, watching the scene unfold. Though the Kiri Onbu remained impassive behind their masks, internally, they couldn't help but feel sympathy for the prisoners. I'll need to make sure Anko doesn't create a miniature version of herself, Kakashi thought, remembering just how much trouble Anko had been. Then again, Kushina had also instilled a sense of fear in his sensei during their early years of marriage. A week later, Kazuna had finally completed the bridge, which would now connect his country to the mainland, after Naruko and her team had raided Gato's mansion and dismantled his empire. Naruko provided Kazuna with the financial records, company deeds, and a list of the ports owned by Gato, helping to lay the groundwork for the Wave country to take control of Gato's operations with the assistance of the local daimyo and his contractors. During this time, Shinku bonded with Haku and Hotari, exchanging stories about their travels across the elemental nations. Zabuza, meanwhile, challenged Kakashi to a friendly spar, eager to test the abilities of the legendary copy ninja. The match ended in a draw, with Kakashi using his Sharingan to copy Zabuza's hand seals and jutsu, though both warriors held a deep respect for each other's skills. At the moment, Naruko stood at the edge of the bridge, arms folded as she gazed out at the vast ocean, contemplating her next move. She had already encountered Yugito, Yagura, and Utakata, but Han and Roshi were still in Iwagakure, while Fu resided in Taki. She knew that approaching Iwagakure would be difficult due to their long-standing animosity toward her father's actions during the last war. However, Takigakure was a neutral nation, making it easier for her to arrange a meeting with the vessel of Chomei, the seven-tailed beetle. Beyond this, Naruko had other challenges to face, including the looming threats of Danzo and Orochimaru. Danzo, who remained in Konoha, was a figure of great concern due to his dark ambitions, while Orochimaru was working to establish his own rogue village, with plans to destroy Konoha, aided by Suna, who had been tricked by Orochimaru posing as the Yondaime Kazekage. Naruko also worried about her old ally, Gaara. The seal placed on him caused immense suffering, leading to sleepless nights and a deteriorating mental state. Naruko hoped that if she could approach Gaara and help alter the faulty seal, she could bring some stability to him, restoring his ability to control his power and removing the influence of the insane monk that had affected Shukaku. The Akatsuki, an organization shrouded in mystery, had been inactive for a while, as they were focused on recruiting new members for their cause and locating the remaining Jinchūriki. However, due to Naruko's earlier actions against Zetsu, the group's plans were set back temporarily. Zetsu had been their spy within the organization, and his absence now left a significant gap. Naruko's main concern was Konan and Nagato Uzumaki, who used the alias Pain. Both Konan and Nagato had been students of Jiraiya alongside the late Yahiko, and Naruko wondered if there was a way to convince them to abandon their current path. It was known that Danzo had betrayed them, siding with Hanzo, which had cost Yahiko his life. If Naruko could succeed in bringing them over to their side, it would be a huge blow to Madara and weaken his plans considerably. As Naruko reflected on this, Kakashi appeared next to her with his book in hand. "Aniki, you do realize that if Rin sees you with that book, you're going to be in trouble, right?" Naruko reminded him with a smirk, to which the silver-haired Jonin shrugged nonchalantly. "Don't worry, Naruko. I only read it when Rin, your mother, Anko, and Yugao aren't around," Kakashi said casually, before adding with a teasing tone, "but I have been missing a few chapters lately. Have you been reading them?" Naruko rolled her eyes in mock annoyance. "Please, I don't read those kinds of books my godfather writes. Besides, I'm sure there are plenty of girls out there who would be more than happy to try some of the things he writes about," she joked, earning a few sneezes from certain girls who had caught the comment. Kakashi, lost in his thoughts, briefly imagined a scene with Rin in a nurse's outfit and grinned, oblivious to Naruko's sweat-dropping reaction. Snapping out of his stupor, Kakashi quickly pocketed his book. "All right, Atoto, time to go. I'll have plenty of time to read this after I spend some time with Rin-chan," he said eagerly, skipping toward the boat. Naruko watched him go, shaking her head, before warping away herself. After parting ways with the others, the group from Kumo and the mercenary ninja went in different directions. However, before leaving, Haku winked at Naruko, while Hotari did the same for Amoe. This caused Amoe to blush and avert his gaze, much to Naruko's amusement. She knew that once Amoe shared the moment with the energetic Karo, he'd never live it down. In the Namikaze estate in Kumo, Kushina was speechless upon receiving a collection of scrolls from Naruko. These scrolls contained a vast array of powerful fuinjutsu, kinjutsu, and high-level techniques once thought to be lost after their home was attacked. Most of the jutsu within were A or S rank, which caused Kushina to feel both awe and concern. Hitomi, who had been observing, was amused by Kushina's reaction. "I can't believe you found all these," Kushina said in disbelief. "These techniques were created by my ancestors." Naruko responded, "I was surprised that Gato managed to find these in our ancestors' lands. If he had sold them on the black market, they could have fallen into the wrong hands, like Orochimaru's or even Danzo's." Kushina shuddered at the thought of those individuals gaining control of such powerful techniques. "I'm just relieved you found them," she said. "These are incredibly powerful, and in the wrong hands, they could be disastrous. Only someone from the Uzumaki clan truly understands the complexity of these seals. Even someone like Jiraiya would need months to study a high-class seal before understanding how to use it." After a brief pause, Kushina added, "So, the remaining Jinchūriki are the ones with the Ichibi, Yinbi, Gobi, and Nanabi, and they're still located in their respective villages, right?" "Yes," Naruko confirmed. "And Akatsuki is still looking for new recruits. I believe their true base is in Amigakure, where Nagato is currently in charge. He killed Hanzo and anyone associated with him to take control." Kushina's expression grew grim. She knew that even though Hanzo was past his prime, he was still a very dangerous individual, especially with his legendary salamanders at his disposal. "Nagato is a powerful ninja," she acknowledged. "He once turned Konoha into a wasteland with a gravity-based jutsu strong enough to crush anything. Even Jiraiya couldn't defeat him, despite using Sage Mode. He only managed to take down one of Nagato's paths." "But that was mainly due to the powers of the Rinnegan," Naruko replied. "Even though Nagato possesses the eyes of my creator, his strength is nowhere near that of the Rikudo Sennin, who mastered the power of the Rinnegan. From what you showed us, Nagato's actual body is in poor condition due to using the demonic statue and relies on his bodies to move around." "So, he would be vulnerable to attack?" Shinku asked, but Naruko shook her head. "No, Nagato is protected by Konan, who can use origami as a weapon, and those paper creations are sharper than steel. Trust me, you don't want to get too close to one of her creations. She's also his closest ally and is known as his eyes and ears in Amiga Core, with the people there referring to her as an angel and Nagato as a god, Naruko explained. Hitomi scoffed at the idea of anyone calling themselves a god. Such claims are nothing but delusions, she remarked, her voice full of disdain. Only true deities have the right to such titles. Unknown location. So, Zetsu is no longer with us? A figure in the shadows inquired, looking at the other figure, who nodded in response. That is concerning, as Zetsu was the only one with the ability to gather information so swiftly. Yes, that's correct. And there's more. My connection with Yagura has been severed and is no longer under my control, the second figure replied. But that shouldn't be possible unless someone else possesses eyes as powerful as yours. That seems to be the only explanation I can think of, the second figure agreed. Should we send one of our operatives to investigate and track down this anomaly? No. We'll stick to our original plan. We have a few spies embedded in the villages who can inform us of the vessel's identities. We'll handle this person when the time is right, the second figure responded calmly. Very well. But if this person becomes a persistent problem, they will face the consequences of defying us. The first figure's tone hardened. From the darkness, a pair of Sharingan eyes appeared, narrowing at the man. Do not become overconfident, Pain, simply because you possess the Rinnegan. It may be your downfall. As I have said before, stay focused on our primary objective. The vessels are crucial to achieving true peace in this chaotic world. Understood, Madara-sama, Pain replied respectfully. Dear family. This is all for now. I truly appreciate your support and would be grateful if you could like, share, and subscribe to my channel to help us grow together. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.